Good afternoon. Good afternoon. What's up? How you doing? This is Coach Renz, and welcome to today's show. As we are going to have hopefully a lively discussion on the fact that Jesus never existed. Jesus of the Bible never existed. He's as real as Spider-Man is real. While people are coming on, setting up the TikTok page. Gotta have a TikTok because actually get more guests on TikTok than we get on this one. All right. Got TikTok set up. So welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I'm your host, Coach Renz. And today we're going to be continuing our discussions. Although we try to stick to the subject matter, of course, we're open to a few other subject matters as well. And we're going to be talking about the fact that Jesus never existed, Jesus of the Bible. I want to go ahead and thank everybody who's a member of the page, who subscribes to the page, everybody who's a subscription holder, depending upon what platform you're looking at. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Those who are members of the fan club, thank you very, very, very much. Those who give gifts and super chats from TikTok, Facebook YouTube. Damn, I got it all wrong. Super chats on Facebook are read out loud. So thank you very much. Oh shit, I wanted to do something. I don't know if I can still do this. Can I add? Oh, I need a stream key for that. No, I can't. Okay, I have to figure that one out later. But anyway, thank you everybody for being here. I gotta get more light. Okay. More light for that. Shadowy on me, but it's a little bit better on Facebook and YouTube. Turn more light on. All right, so we're gonna have a discussion today. Hopefully, we have some good conversation. There's a person. I just want to see if this person will come on TikTok. Just check it out. But yeah, so we're gonna have this discussion. Look forward to having it. Hopefully, it will be a good discussion that we have. But the biblical Jesus never existed. And I want to be clear. I don't think the biblical Jesus existed, nor is there any historical evidence of a Jesus ever existing. So the historicity, when a lot of these scholars and people say that the historical Jesus existed, I say no. They're just scared. To me, it seems like they're scared of the population, scared that they will get too much ridicule. Even people like Bart Ehrman. I respect the fact of what he's doing. But, just go ahead and say the whole goddamn thing. There's actually zero evidence that there was any person, itinerant preacher, walking around and that became the biblical Jesus. It is most likely that there are multiple people that the story is based off of. And most likely it is a story that came about because when the temple, the temple was destroyed by the Romans, that all of a sudden they ran out and said, oh, we're going to create, they started creating this story of a Jesus. And there's some contextual evidence even within the Bible that this is something that is probable. If you look at any of the stories, especially when we're talking about Ezekiel and Daniel and Jeremiah, a tendency that you see within the Jewish religion is that each time the temple was destroyed, people were under occupation. They then had prophecies. These apocalyptic prophecies would come out. These prophets would all of a sudden appear. So every time a temple was destroyed, it's like, oh, we were destroyed because we were disobedient. We weren't obeying God. And then a prophet came, and that prophet was Daniel, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. It came and they uplifted the people and told us that we're going to be great again, right? They had ancient MAGA going on. So when Titus came and destroyed the second temple in 70 CE, it's almost as if they said, hey, you know how they wrote about Daniel and Ezekiel and Jeremiah, how they galvanized the people, told good stories about the people, how we're going to become great again. Let's do one better. We're even going to say that the Messiah has come. We're going to make it even a bigger, better, more glorious story. And we're going to use some of the ideas from the Old Testament in order to facilitate this whole concept. So with that, when we see a pattern within a religion, and you see a pattern in any society, after a while, you have to say that they're just repeating the pattern again. And the Jesus narratives seem more like a repeat of the same pattern that was used in the Old Testament each time that the people were being oppressed, being dominated by another culture, or their temple had been destroyed. Which is one of the reasons why you will never find they, even though they say P52, which is the size of a credit card, they say P52 is that's first century. They say that Paul's letters are first century. You actually have no proof whatsoever that Paul's letters are first century. You have no proof that any gospel is first century. There's no proof that any of those things are first century. So it's more than likely those things was written in the second century, right? Did somebody try to come up? Okay, let's see. Nope, don't know who that is. I think some of these people just be clicking on by accident. But there's no proof that any of these writings were first century. What's your name? You got a first guest up here.
What's going on, man? Catrell.
Good. What'd you say your name was again?
Catrell.
Catrell, how you doing, Catrell? You're over 21?
Yes.
All right. Great. So what do you think of the subject matter?
It says, did the Jesus of the Bible exist? When was he born? Where did he grow up? First century Hebrew teachings, different resurrection stories.
Yeah, you can pick any of those. Do you believe in Jesus?
I probably understand it in a different way than a normal person. Most of the masses of people.
But you do believe in Jesus?
Yeah, it's in my framework, but
okay.
Not in that same way that other people do.
Okay, explain.
Well, I would say Jesus is symbolic for every person that lives and breathes and walks and talks.
Okay, so you don't think that there was ever a person named Jesus who's walking around?
No, I think everybody is Jesus, pretty much.
Okay, but was there an actual person named Jesus in first century walking around? I'm just trying to understand.
I mean, could it be, but I don't read the Bible in that manner.
So you think that the stories about Jesus was written as a symbolic allegory for the self?
Yes.
Okay.
An allegory that you put together to reality to understand the symbolisms and the meaning behind them that is actual and practical in everyday life.
Okay, so the story where Jesus is talking to the Canaanite woman who wants her child to be healed, and he called her a dog. How is that symbolic? What's the symbolism in that story that's applicable to your life?
Give me the verse and stuff. I'll look at it. Chapter verse, book chapter verse.
Okay, so I can't tell you right offhand exactly the chapter verse, but it wouldn't be that hard to find. But you don't know that story?
I'm familiar with the story. I mean, I'm pretty much already telling you. I would say it would be more when you understand the veil, or you uncover the veil, which is pretty much man's traditions and this, that, and the other on how they interpret God or whatever. Or the adversary, they bow to you once you understand. So it's not about good and evil, this, that, and the other. It's about everything in its proper place.
Okay, that be honest with you, that sounds like a bunch of word salad, but it's Matthew 15, verses 21 through 28. Everything you said was kind of just like church word salad. Like,
I don't see how it was okay. So
it doesn't give any.
Right. So if I'm saying veil, right, and I'm saying that's pretty much people being deceived on what you think God is, or this, that, and the other, on how you're supposed to worship or how you're supposed to follow, or this, that, and the other, you lift that, you have a realization that's all BS. And the only way that you are connected to that is through your heart and mind, how you think and feel. And then what you supply and nourish and cultivate within your body first, then outside your body.
Okay. What's a practical example of that? That's why I call that word salad, because you can say all of that, but if there's no practicality to it, then it's just a lot of philosophical stuff. So
I mean, the practical thing is to understand these things in truth. Whatever the religious is saying, you put it to the test in reality.
Okay.
And if it don't hold in reality, then it's not true.
Okay. So Jesus calling the Canaanite woman.
Talking about this specific thing.
Jesus,
15 what?
21. I think it's 21. 21 through 28. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, so this the account with the Canaanite woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Woman approaches him and cries, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is severely oppressed." At first, Jesus does not answer. The disciples want her sent away. Jesus says, "I will send only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." "Lord, help me," Jesus responds. "It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs."
Mm-hmm.
Lord replies, sorry about that. "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you desire. Her daughter is healed." I mean, it's still like the symbolism for what I just said to you.
How do you apply that practically in your life?
I just said it to you. I just said I didn't sit here and allow my life to be constructed by another form of thought, by another person's thoughts or another person's structure or another person's creation or any of that. I didn't allow myself to sit here and walk around here and saying Jesus is my savior, or Allah is my savior, or this, that, and the other. I know exactly who I am.
Okay, but you said earlier that Jesus is pretty much a metaphor of how you apply Jesus to your Jesus. Everyone is their own Jesus, and how you apply that to your own life. So in the story with the
everyone's name is not Jesus.
You said Jesus.
Everybody has their own name.
You said Jesus is within everybody. Everybody at the story of Jesus.
No, I said it's symbolic. It's
yeah.
a symbolism.
It's a symbolism. So
yeah, so it's not like you follow Jesus and like you follow blindly behind him. It's like you follow the understanding that he taught, and you lead yourself as he led himself.
Okay, you said he wasn't a real person, but if this is a lesson,
it's a symbolism. So if we read in the Bible, it's like he's a real person. These are real characters or whatever in the Bible. So he would be a character in the Bible or a person in the Bible. Okay. So that's how we're talking.
So how do you take this Canaanite woman story and apply that to your life in reality?
I just told you how.
No, you didn't.
You by understanding the deceivery, by understanding the BS, I put the BS and the deception in its proper place. So therefore, I don't forsake it.
Okay.
But it still gets
do you see how I'm saying that what you're saying is word salad? Because you have not given a practical example of how you apply this to your life.
Okay, here's a practical example. Right? Let's say I have a gun, right? Or a pew pew. I guess TikTok. I got a pew pew, right?
Yeah.
I can show it or I can conceal it.
What's that got to do with the Canaanite woman and him calling her a dog?
I understand, depending on what state I'm in and the laws of that, I understand the good and bad for me being able to walk around showing it, and I understand the good and bad of me.
What does that have to do with the woman who he called a dog?
Right. Again, if that's a veil, if that's something that's hindering you from understanding, and then once you understand, you put it in its proper place. You know how to use that understanding.
What is the understanding of him calling the woman a dog, and then only when she accepts that she's a dog does he then heal her child?
Again, it's a symbolism. It's not a real woman. She's a symbol for secrecy. She's a symbol for hiddency. She's a symbol for covering.
How is she a symbol for secrecy and covering? How is she a symbol for secrecy and covering?
Because that's what sin is. That's the veil. Like you gotta.
Where was this woman? What sin did this woman commit? What sin did this woman commit? If you say that the teachings of Jesus is a symbolism for how you should live your life, I could be able to pick any version or any point, and you should be able to convert that over to Jesus.
Sin is not knowing who you are as a person.
That woman knew who she. In that story, how did that woman not know who she was? She said, "Yes, I'm a dog," and she absolutely knew who she was.
Again, once she's the veil, and you understand the veil, she goes back. You put her in her proper place.
My guy, you have.
You know how to use it.
Look,
you know how to use it.
Okay.
You know how to use it for your benefit, and you know how to use it for not for your benefit. You know how to use it for your favor or your unfavor.
Let me explain something. You just doing a whole bunch of word salad, a whole bunch of mysticism and philosophy. You know, that sounds good to most people. And yeah, go ahead and run, because what you're doing is just saying a bunch of stuff that sounds good to most people, but you have no practical. But when it comes to being called to the carpet, where you got to make a practical example of you following this symbolic Jesus inside you, and then when you are giving, and obviously you want to pick and choose which teachings of Jesus that you want to make it symbolic, right? But I got you in just a second, Maggie. Which ones you want to make symbolic? That was just a bunch of bullshit. That's all that is. It sounds good when you're talking to somebody like, yeah, you got to take Jesus and make Jesus symbolic and uncover the veil so that the secrecy of the universe becomes revealed to you, so that you can then tread through the microcosm and macrocosm of the different dimensional planes. How's that going to feed my family? How's that going to make me a better person? That's the part that you're lacking. And I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. Maggie.
Hello.
Hey, Maggie, how you doing?
Good.
Are you over 21?
Yes.
Okay. Are you a believer?
Yes, I am.
And so do you have proof that the biblical Jesus existed?
Yes.
What,
we have evidence.
What evidence is that?
That the Bible is the most documented manuscript on earth. Do you know that?
Yeah, it's not.
Actually, it is.
It is the most copied document on earth, but and that's only in a certain way we can claim that. But it has been copied more times than any other book, translated more times than any other book. But now that we're in our modern world, I can easily say that a comic book has just as many copies as the Bible.
No, but I'm not talking about copies. I mean that in terms of how much was documented during that time period in history.
So what's your example of that?
From manuscripts.
Like what manuscripts? Because we don't have any manuscripts that date before the 4th century.
Does that change the fact that it has the most manuscripts? That's my point.
No, It doesn't have the most. So there's a difference between manuscripts and copies. The Bible in itself, manuscripts are the actual writing. And then there's copies of those actual writings.
I understand.
You don't have like 5,000 different manuscripts of the book of Matthew. You just got the book of Matthew. That's one manuscript that's been copied a bunch of times. And then there are certain differences in some of those copies, especially if we get to the book of Mark.
To fact check real quick, I just looked up how many manuscripts of the Bible are there. There are over 24,000 ancient manuscripts and fragments of the New Testaments alone. So just the New Testament.
I understand how the internet puts that out like that. I do get it. I get it.
No,
but
I mean, I can go to the actual institute
that
did this research if you want that too.
So let me ask you a question. You got one of the earliest manuscripts of Mark, right? 4th century. If I have another copy of Mark in the 5th century, do I have another manuscript or do I have another copy? Do I have a copy of Mark?
So what I'm trying to explain to you is that these are not copies. These are the original manuscript fragments that was written.
Yeah, no. There are not 20. That's a language. That's an abuse of language that apologists use to try to make the Bible have so many other people writing the same thing, right? So you've been in school before. You write an essay. If somebody copies your essay, is that 2 manuscripts or is that 1?
If someone copies it, then it's 1.
Right, because they made a copy of yours.
Yes, but I'm trying to understand where you're getting that these are copies. That's what I'm trying to understand here.
Because that's what they are. Because what you have is you got little scraps like P52, which is the size of a credit card. It has like 30 words on it from the book of John, right? They count that as a manuscript. That's not a manuscript, right?
Well,
now,
I mean, technically it's a fragment of the manuscript.
Right.
So yeah, it's a part of the manuscript.
It's a fragment of what hopefully is a manuscript. It's a fragment of what hopefully by the time we get to 4th, 5th, 6th century, and we have full manuscripts of John, hopefully what that scrap says, that it came from something that reads exactly like 4th, 5th, 6th century John. But 4th, 5th, 6th century John is still just a copy of whatever whatever P52 came from. You know, that's what I'm saying. So it's not a new manuscript. It's a copy of what they hopefully think comes from the original.
Well, I'm still trying to say that they're finding more of these ancient fragments in the manuscripts in the Bible than any other historical manuscript. That's what I'm trying to let you know.
And I'm gonna digress from that, and I understand what you're saying, because at the end of the day, just because if you have a bunch of copies of something, does that mean that the something is real?
I would say that means that there might be validity and credibility to these writings, right?
Or is that validity and credibility to that people believed it, or that it actually happened?
That it actually happened. I mean, if enough people tell you, right, that they saw a car crash, right,
mm-hmm.
You're going to think that all these people are lying, or you're going to actually investigate to try to find out if they're credible?
Well, I would, but a car crash in today's world is not comparative to something that happened in the ancient world.
Well, of course not, because we can't go back in time to see it. But that's how we study history, period.
No.
We can't go back in time, but we have to read these documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to read these historical manuscripts of any ancient civilization or in that time. So it's not just the Bible. There's other documents, but I'm saying that the Bible has a lot of that to back it up.
Okay, so
other documents, historical documents.
But you're still just talking about what people believe. It doesn't prove it to be fact, because when we read Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, right? Homer's Iliad and Odyssey was during the 2nd century BCE, 1st century BCE, 1st century CE, was believed by more people in that world, in that place, in that part of the world, than any other documentation, any other belief. More people believe the Trojan War, that Achilles fought in, and that Achilles was half god, half human. That the Jason and the Argonauts went and fought Cyclopses and Hydras and all these sorts of things. More people believe, the majority of the people in the Western world believe that at that time frame, Mediterranean world, they thought that was real. And they had plenty of manuscripts to back it up of the Iliad and the Odyssey. So does that make it real?
So I'm not saying that because something is written down, it means we necessarily believe it, right?
Mhm.
Because like you mentioned, someone could write down a fictional story, but when you read literature, right, you understand the writing. That's what the historians are looking at. That's what the people who are studying these manuscripts and the Bible are looking at, right?
Mhm.
They're not just looking, because we understand there's difference between fiction, nonfiction. There's different forms of literature and how they're written, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to take that into account when you're reading these documentations. Of course, you shouldn't just believe that it's real just because it's written down.
Well, that's what I'm taking into that. I am taking that into consideration, because I'm taking into consideration of the people at different time frames. The people in the time frame of 1st century believed that Zeus, Achilles, Hercules, all those people existed. All those guys were real. So that is no different from people at any time frame believing that the Bible stories are real. So manuscripts don't give validity to something actually happening. You need more than manuscripts. And then when you have within the manuscripts, there are contradictions, that invalidates the manuscripts in itself. Would you not agree?
Okay. So I get your point. But like what I'm trying to tell you is I understand that. I'm actually agreeing with you. So yeah, of course we shouldn't just take any type of documentation and say that it really happened. We have to read the way it was written, right? So these people are writing an eyewitness account, right?
No.
So
they weren't eyewitnesses.
They were, because if you look at the Gospels, they were eyewitnesses to Jesus, right?
No, they're not. None of them were written during the time frame of Jesus, and you can't validate that any of them were eyewitnesses. And at least 2 of them tell you that they're not eyewitnesses. Luke says he wasn't an eyewitness.
Matthew wasn't in the time of Jesus, because I'm pretty sure he was.
No, Matthew is the only gospel that somewhat claims that he was an eyewitness, but the book of Matthew was never known as Matthew until it was named in 182 by Irenaeus. So it's unauthored. It's anonymously written. No one knows who actually wrote them. They were given the names in 182 by Irenaeus.
Yeah, so why would Irenaeus just make up a random name? And can you substantiate this?
Well, Irenaeus himself said it in his writings. In Irenaeus' writing, he said that he is the one who named them. Before that, Justin Martyr called them the wisdom of the apostles. And before Justin Martyr, there was only the Gospel of Marcion, which was in the Marcion Bible. And he only had one gospel, which is a shorter version of Luke, of what becomes Luke.
Okay, I don't know how much of what you're saying is true. I'm gonna fact check you.
No, dude, so yeah, great.
Irenaeus, yeah, how do we spell his name?
Oh Lord, bro. You know, spell check came out a long time ago. I just started out and then it corrects itself. It's so it's Ireneaeus.
IRE, okay.
Naeus. And he's Irenaeus of Lyon in around 185.
Yeah, so yeah, I just checked that up. It doesn't say that he named him that. It said that he recorded the traditions of the Apostle Matthew that wrote the Gospels. So it's not stating that he named Matthew that.
I'm reading it in the Biblical Hermeticus Stack Exchange. And around 185, Irenaeus of Lyon becomes the first surviving ancient Christian writer to explicitly attribute the four canonical Gospels to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Luke and John. The original New Testament Gospels circulated anonymously. Early church fathers like Justin Martyr referred to them as the memoirs of the apostles. In his famous work Against Heresies, Irenaeus declared that the church must exclusively recognize the four Gospels. He associated the writings with the traditional authors to combat competing religious groups that only used a single gospel, which was the Marcions. The Marcions was the ones who was using a single gospel. Yeah, hold on. Irenaeus argued there could be explicitly four gospels, comparing them to the four zones of the earth and the four winds. He linked them to the four-faced creatures described in the book of Ezekiel, which inspired the traditional symbols of the evangelist. I don't know why I cannot say that word right now. Evangelist, the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle. So, no, these didn't have names. Justin Martyr was like around 135, 155 time frame. So he's a little bit before Irenaeus. But they were circulating without names on them.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that he named them that, because a lot of the time it was tradition that was passed down, right? Oral tradition, orally, right?
Okay, I think you're missing it a little bit.
No, so with everything that you said, nowhere did it say that he named it Matthew.
Oh, that was the first thing I said. He explicitly attributed the four canonical gospels to Matthew.
Yeah, attributing doesn't mean that he's naming it.
That's what attributing means. Like if I get a essay with no name on it, and then I attribute it to Maggie, that means I'm saying Maggie wrote this.
Yes, but the reason he's saying it, what you're failing to realize, is that they recorded it. So he recorded the tradition that the Apostle Matthew wrote. It's not that he gave Matthew that name. That's what you're not understanding.
No, but damn near every scholar agrees that he gave them those names, and one of the reasons they say that is because the earlier writer, Justin Martyr, you know who Justin Martyr is? Maggie.
Yes, can you explain?
So Justin Martyr was an earlier Christian, big time Christian church father before Irenaeus, right? When Irenaeus was still studying on the Polycarp, supposedly. Justin Martyr was combating people who were against Christianity, especially the Jewish community. Justin Martyr, every time he quoted the traditions or the Bible, he called them the memoirs of the apostles, but he never gave a name. He never named any apostle. He never said Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Polycarp never mentioned a Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. They just said apostles, right? So because none of the manuscripts were named at the time frame, so they always just call them apostles. We don't get those first names until Irenaeus says it.
Okay. What does that have anything to do with my point?
The facts are, as we know them right now, is that the manuscripts had no name attached to them until Irenaeus. So we don't even know who actually wrote them. So we can't say that.
Well, I wouldn't say that means we don't know who wrote them. I don't agree with that part.
I mean, people living in 185 and 135, they said that they didn't know who wrote them until Irenaeus decided on the names. Marcion, the book of Luke, which is a longer version of the Marcion gospel, in the Marcion Bible, it was called the Gospel of Marcion. He named it after himself. And you can find that in Irenaeus's, and well, you can find that in Irenaeus's writings against the heresies, where he's trying to combat the Marcionites, who were the first Christians to canonize a Bible. So there were the namings wasn't around. If Marcion actually knew that this book was called Luke, Marcion would have called it the Gospel of Luke. And Marcion thought that there should only be one gospel. He didn't think there should be four, but just one gospel.
Okay. I don't understand how that changes the fact that Irenaeus still went through tradition here to name these apostles. Right?
But that's my point. There was no tradition of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John until Irenaeus named them that.
He recorded the tradition that the apostle Matthew wrote.
He attributed. He didn't say that.
It says that and this is from the Bart Ehrman. So this is Bart Ehrman, the actual historian, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Bart Ehrman is saying what?
It says that around 180 CE, the church father Irenaeus of Lyons.
Irenaeus of Lyon.
Yeah, Lyons was the first to explicitly name the author of the first canonical gospel as Matthew. He recorded the tradition that the apostle Matthew wrote in his gospel in Hebrew while Peter and Paul were preaching and established a church in Rome. So that doesn't say that he just made up a random name. It's saying that he recorded the traditions that the apostle Matthew wrote.
Now,
that's what it says.
I have listened to many of Bart Ehrman's speeches and actually watched some of his lectures for his class. And even when I just looked it up right now, a synopsis of Bart Ehrman's thought process on the naming of the Gospels, it says that Bart Ehrman strongly supports the view that the original Gospels were entirely anonymous, which I've heard him say 11 different times. And he points to Irenaeus in 185 as the first surviving historical evidence of them being assigned their traditional name. Now, their traditional name is not saying their tradition before Irenaeus. It's saying what we consider their traditional name now, not that was the traditional name before Irenaeus.
Well, I'm on this page, the ehrmanblog.org. I'm reading it. It's kind of going more into depth of how he came to this. So it says, I have now gotten to a point where I discussed why the four Gospels were given the names of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So he does make this claim that they were written anonymously. So he's saying that there's no call familiar names until around. It says these particular gospels were called by their familiar names until around 180 CE in sources connected with Rome, Irenaeus, and another fragment. My hypothesis is the addition of these gospels were published in Rome. He was given the time and the details. So this is all his speculation. It says if all that is correct, so he's going based off of the research that he went into certain Roman quotes. And it says the reason that he thinks that is possibly based, of course, on things being said in the church. So it seems to me that he doesn't really have a definitive understanding of why he thinks this. It's based off of certain research that he came in the conclusion. But it still says that they were, and I don't know where you're getting that that the tradition is now, but it's not. It said he recorded. So it's saying that Irenaeus recorded the tradition that the Apostle Matthew wrote.
Well,
That's what it says.
Because you're recording that what we traditionally call it now. But let me put it to
No.
let me
That's not now. It is.
no
We live in our time.
traditionally since at least the 4th century. So we've been calling them Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John for the 1st century. And can I say that traditionally they're called Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John? Would
Based off of what Irenaeus recorded, yeah.
So
The Apostle Matthew.
when I say based on the tradition of what we call them, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, it harkens back to the fact that Irenaeus was the first one to record that. Now, here's the thing about it. This is one thing. None of the manuscripts that precedes the Codex Sinaiticus has the names of any of those characters within the context, within the code, within the manuscripts. So if you're looking at a 3rd century, if you're looking at it, well, you're looking at an earlier 2nd century writing or a 1st century writing, none of them have the names Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John in them.
So you're saying none of the manuscripts had those names? That's your claim?
Until Irenaeus, none of them have the name listed in them as Mark, Matthew, Luke, or John. They're not in there. And which is why many people say that it was later added. Later scribes after Irenaeus added the names Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
I would say that's still speculation. Yeah.
No, that's not speculation. We have some of those. You first started out talking about all the other manuscripts that we have.
Yeah, so let's look up the manuscripts.
Hold on. So we have good portions of some of those manuscripts, and none of them list before Irenaeus. None of them list the names that are attributed to the Bible, is attributed to those gospels themselves. Like none of them. And the thing about it, Bart Ehrman makes that statement. I mean, you called on his name. So Bart Ehrman actually made that statement that none of the earlier manuscripts contains those names in them.
Okay, but I don't get how that changes the point that these people still wrote. They're still eyewitnesses accounts. Just because they didn't have the name doesn't change that.
Well, one, that they're anonymous, so we can't say who the witness was. Now, two, people like Luke, Mark, John, they're not eyewitnesses. They're written so much later that it's impossible for them to be eyewitnesses either, as well. And then there are so many contradictions within each story that these cannot be eyewitnesses. One of the contradictions is that according to the book of Matthew, Jesus was born during the time frame that Herod was king, right?
Yeah.
According to Luke, Jesus was born when Herod Antipas had been disposed of, and Quirinius, the governor of Syria, came to do a census. Herod had died no later than 4 BCE. Quirinius didn't do a census till 6 CE. There's at least minimum a 10-year gap. So Jesus couldn't have been born during the time frame of Herod and being born at the time frame that Antipas, who came after Herod died, Herod Antipas ruled, and then Quirinius came down to do the census, and according to Luke, that's when Jesus was born.
But I don't get how that's a contradiction, though.
What year were you born?
I don't feel like disclosing that.
I didn't understand what you said. What'd you say? Oh, you said you don't want to disclose that. Okay.
Yeah.
I was born in 1971. And so if my mom said that I was born in 1971, but my dad said I was born in 1981, can they both be right?
No, but so where in the scripture, can you quote me the scriptures that you're talking about?
Hold on for a second. Oh, I just saw somebody pop up. If you can be patient for a minute, Taharka, I would love to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so let me make sure here. So of course, Matthew has the birth of Jesus story. It starts in Matthew 1, right? And David 14, 15 chapters. Now for Mary, Messiah, the way, the Holy Spirit, your husband Joseph. That's talking about the husband Joseph. So we have here in Matthew, and I think I have to actually go to chapter 2. Yeah. In chapter 2, it says that in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, the Magi from the east came. So it's saying that he was born during the time frame of King Herod, right? Matthew chapter 2. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
All right. So then King Herod, now Herod died in 4, no later than 4. There's some little thing that he died in 6 BCE or 4 BCE. But then in Luke chapter 2, it says that in those days, the decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration that was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And he went down to the town to register the people. Now, we know by Roman records that Quirinius didn't become governor of Syria until 6 CE. So that's where the 10-year, at minimum 10-year gap comes from. So was he born in before 4 CE, or was he born in 6 CE?
Well, let's see what the consensus is with the scholars, right?
Go ahead. Type in what the consensus
Yeah,
is.
another person can talk while I get this.
Taharka. I love your channel. For anybody who's watching, definitely follow Taharka. Introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. I'm Taharka. I'm a professor of Africana history. Yeah, that's about this thing. I do videos on African American history, but many times they do overlap with the deconstruction lives or deconstruction arguments, because religion and culture become a big part of the work that I do. So.
Mm-hmm. And do you know much about what I'm talking about right now, or what do you know? Okay. Mm-hmm. As a scholar, can you explain?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I tuned out at like the last few minutes. I started playing the game. I was like, I'm hearing this stuff all the time, so I don't remember the last thing. I don't remember the last thing you were saying, but yeah, no. The thing I do remember is that what we do know is that the authors, and this is the scholarly consensus, is that the authors of the Gospels were not attributed for many years after they were written. So those aren't the people that, the names that you're seeing there are not the people that wrote them. And
that doesn't change anything. Like
that was a tradition that was, pretty popular during that time, that things become popular in that way, religious texts, things of that nature. You begin to attribute the name to someone to lend some type of authenticity to it, but yeah, that is the case.
And as far as the birth narrative, with Luke saying that Jesus was born during the time frame that Quirinius was governor of governor of Syria, and came down to do a census in Judea. But according to Matthew, Jesus was born during the time frame of Herod the Great.
Herod the Great, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you agree that Herod the Great died no later than 4 BCE, and
Absolutely.
Governor Quirinius didn't come into governorship until 6 CE?
Right.
So there's a 10-year gap at minimum.
Yeah, no, there's huge contradiction.
Well, not really. So I just looked it up. Most historians and biblical scholars agree that Jesus was a real historical figure. So that's, first of all, that's the consensus.
That's apologies.
And the scholars widely agree that Jesus was born between 6 BCE and 4 BCE. This is because the Gospels indicate he was born during the reign of Herod the Great, who died in 4 BCE.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the consensus.
What we were stating is that there's a contradiction in the Bible itself.
Well, I'm letting you know that the scholars who study this are saying that there's not.
Yeah, but you're conflating two different issues.
Actually, I'm not. I'm going based off of the consensus here.
And I would say that you're going off the consensus of apologetic, not actual, biblical scholars who haven't already said that they're going to support whatever the Bible says. Because when you read that, and it says because of the gospel saying that he was born during the time frame of Herod the Great, there's only one gospel that says that he was born during the time frame of Herod the Great, whilst Luke, the other gospel, the third one, is saying that he was born during the time frame Governor Quirinius came down to Judea to perform a census. So they're ignoring Luke and just choosing Matthew as the basis of that statement. And that's what apologetics does.
Well, I think that you guys are also a bit biased here because you're not reading into and it's not just, it doesn't just say apologetic scholars, mind you. It's talking about historians, period, not apologetic historians. But anyways, yeah, so I think you guys are being biased here with Matthew. That clearly is stating that Jesus was born during the reign of Herod the Great, who died in 4 BCE.
Which book is correct?
Well, the consensus agrees that Matthew is the accurate.
So the other is not?
Well, the other isn't. I'm still. So. Okay, but I don't agree with your point. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you don't agree with the words that are in the Bible? It's not our point.
Actually,
it's the words that the Bible says.
Words in the Bible. I agree with that. You guys are the ones that don't.
No.
You're the ones that are saying that it's a contradiction.
Maggie.
Not me.
Maggie. It is not our point of view that Luke says that Jesus was born during the time frame that Governor Quirinius did the census in Judea. That's not our point of view. That's what the Bible says.
But you guys are making it seem like it's a contradiction. That's what you guys are saying.
Because we know that Quirinius didn't become governor of Syria until 6 CE. That's a known fact. Historically documented over and over again throughout Roman society. So that's not our point of view. That's just what the Bible says. So then that's the point. The Bible, either Luke got it wrong or Matthew got it wrong. And that's not the only wrong.
That's based on your guys' interpretation. That's what I would say.
You can say that, but that's not an interpretation. That's what it says. So what does the words Quirinius, the governor of Syria, came to Judea to do a census? How can that be interpreted any other way than this was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was the governor of Syria? How can I interpret that any other way than what it actually says?
Yeah, so it's saying that it depends on your interpretation of that.
And what interpretation of that? of him doing a census?
Yeah.
So what does doing a census mean? How can you interpret doing a census any other way than counting people? Is a census?
I know that.
So if a census is counting people, if we name the person Quirinius who's doing the census and what his position is, then how we can't reinterpret that into anything other than he was a governor of Syria. And if we know that he was the governor, he didn't become the governor of Syria until 6 CE, there's no interpretation there. That's like me trying to reinterpret when Taharka was born. If he was born on July 3rd of 1995, then he was born July 3rd of 1995. There's no other way to interpret that. It's just in the same way that if we continue this thought process of Luke versus Matthew, Matthew says that Jesus, that the angel came down, told Mary and Joseph, Herod trying to kill y'all, go down to Egypt. But
well, it's still not, the point is it's not okay. I get where you're going with this, but so like I said, the people who are reading this, the academic scholars, view the census as a literary device. So it's not a contradiction in the way that you're making it seem, in your understanding. That's what I'm saying. It's your interpretation that there's a contradiction there. That's what I'm trying to say.
do you know what a literary device is?
Yep, it's a way to write.
No. Well, yes and no.
Yes.
But do you understand explicitly what a literary device is in this situation? So a literary device is adding something within the literature to either give it authority or give it to anchor it into a certain time, place, or an idea. So the literary device of during the reign of Governor Quirinius is the literary device to say that yes, Jesus is real because we know Quirinius came down in 6 CE and did this. And if Jesus is attached to this, then that makes Jesus real because people know that Quirinius came and did this.
Attached to Herod. So that's why the consensus leans on Matthew, right?
But Jesus' birth can't be attached to two different people doing two different things.
Yes,
10 years apart.
You're interpreting Luke as a different, a whole different thing, but we're trying to let you know that it's a literary device written in that specific way. That's how they come to this understanding and why it's not a contradiction.
So
it's not meaning that it was actually this time and then one was in this time that you're making up.
So then it's a lie.
Well, if you want to say that the way they write literature, they were lying, then that's your understanding.
No, yeah, I mean that is because that's what it says. It simply says that he wrote it, that he did it, that Luke wrote that he was born during 6 CE, and Matthew is suggesting that he was born somewhere around 6 to 4 BC. So both are using literary devices to anchor Jesus with something that is that the people would have known actually happened in history, but they're both contradicting each other. There's no way that Jesus could have been born under Herod and at the same time
so
that
clearly
Quirinius.
It's not a contradiction. That's what I'm trying to let you know. You're taking it as a contradiction. That's what you're doing. Okay.
We've reached that point of circle where it doesn't matter. And I'm not trying to be rude, but just thinking through it critically is just not going to happen because.
Yeah, you're not thinking it through clearly because you're not a biblical scholar, are you? I'm going to take the biblical scholar over here.
And that's a funny thing because you have no idea who I am and what I know. And
can you let me know?
Just to let you know, I have been studying the Bible for the last 30 plus years. I have participated.
Biblical scholar though.
What?
Yeah, there's so many people that study the Bible, but
what makes you a biblical scholar?
I was just about to ask that question. Go ahead.
When you have at least some sort of, education on it, or something like that.
And what does that mean? Education.
Well, I would say you go to school, right? Do you agree?
That doesn't have to mean you go to school.
Well, it doesn't have to mean, but I say you'd be more credible, at least if you have some form of education and in a school setting.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead, talk.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm gonna let you.
So you, a scholar does not have to have a degree to be a scholar. Do you know that?
I never said that. I said that you would be a more credible source if you do have the background. That's what I said.
Okay. So with that, you cannot say that he is not a scholar.
Well, I'm not saying that he's not a scholar. I'm just saying he's not credible in the way that I would say, a person that actually has an academic background in it in school.
What makes a biblical scholar? What is the hallmarks of a biblical scholar?
Well, biblical scholars, they have academic analysis, critical analysis of the Bible, using different forms of historical, looking at the methodologies of ancient texts, original language, so on and so forth.
Okay, good. You come by those analyses.
Sorry.
How do you come by those analyses?
He said, "How do you come by those analysis?"
Well, I would say at least try to go to school, right? Would you agree with me?
That's one route.
Yeah, I think that's the best route.
Not necessarily.
How so?
How did biblical scholars become biblical scholars before there was a field of biblical scholarship?
I would say it was also through academia, but another form of it.
Is that the only route?
Of course not.
What I'm getting to, Mackie, is that you can go get a degree, become a biblical scholar, and there are many, many others who do not go that route, and they are biblical scholars, and they are familiar with the very same methodologies that others are familiar with. One of the most.
I understand that. I already said I know you can still self-proclaim yourself as a biblical scholar. Of course.
I don't know if it's an early 2000s thing, but have some patience when people are talking.
I've had enough patience.
One of the most popular books on biblical scholarship, A History of God by Karen Armstrong. She didn't go to any seminary. She didn't get her PhD, but she's considered one of the most popular ones. Even among the biblical scholars that got their PhD. They have critiques of her, but they have high praise of her as well.
And I never said that you cannot claim to be a biblical scholar. I never said
someone has been studying
Anyways.
this for 30 years. For 30 years.
Doesn't mean he knows it all, sir. Can you agree to that?
No one said he knew it all.
Yes, so clearly we have a right to challenge what he's stating and his
challenge
beliefs,
what he's saying, but do not be offensive.
How am I being offensive? All I said is that I would trust a person with an academic background and credibility with their understanding of it. That's what I said.
Okay, so the fact that I took, and I rarely talk about this because to me it puts you in a box. In my opinion, it puts you in a box when you rely solely on academia. But I spent 2 years of biblical studies with Harvard and 2 years of biblical studies with Oxford. I refused a scholarship with Dallas Seminary because you have to sign a document that says that whatever you find out, you have to still support the doctrine of the Bible. I have spent probably a total of about 9 months participating with archaeological digs, as well as being with curators in museums in Israel and Egypt. Do you think that those things would qualify me in your way of thinking?
I would say that yes, that clearly shows you have a form of intelligence, and I never want to make you feel that you don't have that. We can disagree, but that doesn't mean that you lack intelligence, you lack knowledge or education. It's not what I'm trying to say. But I have a quick question though. Are you an atheist?
That has nothing to do with it.
It kind of does.
Let me put it like this. When I was doing the majority of my studies, I was a Christian. Now I am not.
Okay, so I was right. So as we know, just as a lot of people love to state that Christians have a bias, I would say atheists have a very big bias against the Bible and the historical accuracy in the Bible and the documentation in the Bible.
So you're missing the point that I was making by stating that during the majority of my study, I was a Christian, because during the majority of my studies, I was biased to the fact that I wanted to prove the Bible was correct. When I was accepted to go into the Vatican Library, which I don't know if Taharka you've ever done this, but it takes like 7 years to get that acceptance.
No, that's chills when you said it, because it's a rare.
And they are strict as hell. And you have to come, and if you don't, I pretty much had to write a dissertation in order to get in there. And you have to make promises of what you learn when you're in there, kind of like with seminary, which I thought was bullshit, but it is what it is. But at the time frame, I didn't mind, because I wanted to prove Christianity correct. So the bias I had during the majority of the time frame that I was studying was to prove Christianity. So to suggest that I now have that my bias is now different because I'm atheist would seem to say that I must have been atheist the whole time, but I was not. I was the chairman of the deacon board of my church and everything, and preached many a sermons.
Okay, so what happened then? If you don't mind me asking.
The more and more I studied the Bible, the more and more I realized that the Bible is not a historical document, that the characters in the Bible 99% of them never existed.
Most historians disagree with that, right?
Yeah, and see, I don't care what most people think. See, I do think it's a failing on people like Bart Ehrman when he will say that the biblical Jesus never existed, but there is a historical Jesus. Because the actual documentation and the actual archaeology would kind of demonstrate that there's not a historical Jesus. And there are so many anachronisms within the New Testament that makes you say that, okay, this story is a fish out of water. It doesn't fit the timeline. Jesus using the term, for instance, Jesus using the term rabbi, or the term rabbi being used, Rabbinical Judaism didn't even begin until after 70 CE. So you can't be an eyewitness to something calling someone rabbi in 30 or 27 CE. You wouldn't have used that term. So that's an anachronism. That'll be like you going back to the 1800s and talking about, yeah, we're going to get on the internet. You don't have an internet in the 1800s. So that would demonstrate that that story is probably false.
Yeah, so you're cherry picking places where that wouldn't align with. But think of all the historical context in there that does align with that time period and the historical.
Like what?
For example, the Jewish traditions at the time, right?
How does the Jewish traditions, how does that facilitate that it makes the story real?
So I would say that there's accuracy there, right? And that's a historical accuracy that's in the Bible. Am I right?
Yeah, I said there's like 1% of the stuff is accurate. 99% is not.
Well, so I don't know how you're coming to this conclusion. Maybe you can give me some sources that
So-
back up this claim.
So the
Or I
fact
don't
that they
know how
had
you-
the fact that they had Sadducees and Pharisees, and the Bible says that they had Sadducees and Pharisees, doesn't necessarily make the Bible true. Spider-Man was in New York, and New York exists. You see what I'm saying? That don't make Spider-Man real.
You know that I used to be an atheist.
No, I didn't know that.
So
But
I know a lot of what these arguments are and that are brought up. But so we're not, of course, we know that someone could write that they're in New York but not actually be in New York. Right?
right.
But what I'm saying is that if there's multiple, so it's not just the Pharisees and Sadducees, there's other Jewish tradition that is in the Torah, right? Because that's the original, that's the Old Testament. Okay.
Okay.
That are accurate to the Jewish traditions
So
that are continuing to this day.
if you're going to open the floodgates for if traditional worship is a proof of that worship, then the fact that the Hindus still participate in traditional worship from a religion that's older than the Abrahamic religions, then you have to then say that those religions are true as well. And so Vishnu and Brahma and Shanti, all of those are real. Do you think those are real? Oh, okay.
Wait, can you repeat what you said? Sorry.
Okay. So when you open the door to say that, well, the Bible quotes or talks about Jewish traditions, and we know that those Jewish traditions were happening at that time frame, still happen today, then if you take that, and this is kind of what Taharka was saying by the criteria that are used, if you take that line, then you have to also then agree that since the Hindu are still practicing traditions that are older than the Abrahamic traditions, then the Hindu belief system is also real, that Vishnu, Brahma, Shanti, all those exist as well.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that means that those things are real, because as we know, these things, Hinduism contradicts Christianity. So I wouldn't say that just because the Hindu, the people in that practice it and are continuing that means that they're right.
But that was the same criteria you just used for the Bible.
Well, I'm using that to show that there's a cultural, cultural significance that was written in there that you're trying to ignore.
Well, Maggie, look at it from another point of view. Christianity contradicts Hinduism.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Which is right.
I would say Christianity has more credibility than Hinduism does.
Why would you say that?
Well, as I stated when I first came in, there's more historical manuscripts and documentation for the Bible. Actually, there is.
Than
There's
Hinduism?
more manuscripts for the Bible.
Than in Hinduism?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Sanskrit?
Not Sanskrit, manuscripts.
Are you familiar with the writings of Hinduism?
Maggie, you there?
Yeah, here.
Are you familiar with the Hindu manuscripts?
Bit of them, not all of them. Yeah, so just I fact checked. There are significantly more ancient and medieval manuscripts for the Bible than there are for any single Hindu text, and that has been proven fact.
Say what you just said again. Say what you said again.
Yep.
Would you say what you just said one more time?
Yes. Did you guys not hear me?
Are you not hearing me?
I hear you.
For the fourth time, say what you just said again.
Okay, there are significantly more ancient and medieval manuscripts of the Bible than there are for any single Hindu text.
Two things are going on there. One, Sanskrit is most ancient, right? That's why I use that word specifically. Two, is it referring to extant texts or how ancient the manuscripts of Hinduism are?
Well, I don't think it's talking about how old they are. I think it's saying which one has the most documented. That's what I'm trying. That's my statement. Yeah.
No, I'm asking, is it saying, is ChatGPT trying to tell you which one
It's
is,
not ChatGPT. It's Google, my friend.
Google AI is trying to tell you which one has the most extant, meaning you can put it in your hand.
It's the Bible. The
Currently-
Bible has way more.
You're not understanding what I'm asking.
And it's not Gemini. You guys are funny. I know that's what you guys use.
I
That's
don't
how you're
care
gonna make it. I don't even know what
what it
Gemini
is,
is.
Max. I don't care what it is, Max.
Anyways.
I just need you to answer what I'm asking you.
Yeah, okay. So it says here, scholars have cataloged over 5,000 ancient Greek manuscripts of just the New Testament alone, and more than 24,000 manuscripts were included in different translations like Latin, Syriac, and Coptic. If you also include Old Testament manuscripts, such as those found in Cairo, Genesia, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, the total manuscript counts even further. So there's even more if you add the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yes.
Now, if you look at Hinduism, Hinduism does not have one central text. Instead, it features a vast, decentralized library of thousands of texts, such as the Vedas and etc. While individual major texts exist in hundreds to thousands of surviving historical manuscripts, no single Hindu text has been copied and preserved in the tens of thousands like the biblical texts, which I was right.
Okay. I'm going to help you understand what you just read. Okay. The Bible itself,
Yes.
as a, well, once it becomes a book, just for lack of paraphrasing for you to understand, once it becomes a book, right? Because these are separate manuscripts at first. It then is copied many, many times, thousands of times. The Hindu manuscripts, which, correct, there's no centralized one. All of them follow because there's many different deities, there's many different stories or whatever. But each of those have been copied thousands of times. All right, so that's the first thing. Like, you're trying to use numbers, and that's not even really what I'm asking you.
The point is that proved the point I stated.
Yeah, Maggie,
I made.
but you're not following the point. Which of those manuscripts are older is what I'm asking you.
I'm telling you, that's not the point I'm making. Doesn't matter who's
That's the
older
question
or not.
I asked you, Maggie.
Okay, so that's not the point I'm trying to make. Okay.
I don't care. That's not the question I asked you.
So don't bring that up to me, because that's not the point I'm
Maggie.
trying to make. So no, I'm not
That's
going
not
to that.
the original question, Maggie.
The original point I was making is that Hinduism
Maggie,
does not have, it is not as historically documented as the Bible, and I just proved my point. So
Maggie,
landed my plane.
the question that I asked you in the beginning was, which is older?
Still there, Maggie?
I'm still there, but what do you think about my point that I stated, which I basically proved you guys wrong?
We can move to your point once you answer mine.
So clearly Hinduism is a lot older.
Okay. So the point that you stated, which I've already followed up on, you clearly didn't hear me. No, there's not a centralized text in Hinduism that has been copied as many times as the Bible.
Not just copy. These are original manuscripts, sir. So you're wrong.
So you're saying there's thousands of original manuscripts?
They are finding the original manuscripts and fragments. Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Are
You're
you
telling me-
okay?
you're telling me we have- Whoa.
They are fragments of original manuscripts.
Maggie, you're telling me we have fragments of the original manuscripts of the
Yes. Do you know what the Dead Sea Scrolls are?
Do you know what year the Dead Sea Scrolls are dated to? What year are the Dead Sea Scrolls dated to?
Third century.
So the Great Book of Isaiah in the Dead Sea Scroll, third century, what, third century BCE? CE?
Yes.
Third
BCE.
century BCE. Is that the original Isaiah?
I would say that that's definitely original. It's very close.
So that's the one that Isaiah wrote. Because Isaiah supposedly lived about 200 and some odd years before that. So is that the one that Isaiah wrote?
Yes.
So you're saying Isaiah lived for 200 plus years and then wrote the great Isaiah scroll, and that the Dead Sea Scrolls that we found, and within the Dead Sea Scrolls that we found. Because the Bible doesn't say that Isaiah lived for 200 plus years.
Well, it doesn't really state how long he lived, though.
But you believe he lived for 200 years.
He lived for, huh?
You're saying that he lived for 200 years.
Well, we know that they lived a long time in the Bible.
So the Bible says that man's life wouldn't be no longer than 120 years after the flood. So how can Isaiah live 200 years? So God lied.
No, I know that's what you want so badly for God to lie.
No, I'm just, it's a legitimate question. You see, it is estimated that Isaiah lived somewhere in the 8th century, possibly 7th century BCE.
Of course, I would agree some of these are copies, but some of these are actual fragments, so it's both.
Okay, can a copy be an original manuscript?
No, but that doesn't change that it's copied from the original manuscripts, which is my point.
But I think the point, and if correct me if I'm wrong, Taharka, what Taharka was saying is that a copy can't be claimed to be an original manuscript. It is a copy, not an original manuscript.
I know, but I'm telling you that it also has fragments. So it's both. It has fragments of the original and copies. So it's both.
You know, the oldest go ahead.
That's whatever AI that you've been using. Do we
Sorry, I already told you it's not AI.
whatever you're using. Answer, do we have,
Wikipedia.
I don't care what it is.
Yeah, okay, so you just assumed. You assumed wrong.
Ask it, do we have the autographed manuscripts, the original autographed manuscripts? Ask it that. In fragments or in whole? Wikipedia is wild.
I can.
You know, Wikipedia is actually a great source if you fact check its methodology, sir. So you should try it.
You mean fact check its sources?
Yeah.
Yes.
So did you ask how many original manuscripts of the Bible do we have?
I don't get what's so funny because I have it here. Yes, well, we don't have all the original or the autographs ones that you
No.
see, right?
Is that where is all there? It's all there.
It says no, we don't have the original manuscripts.
Thank you.
Called the autographs. So I'll give you guys that, okay? But that doesn't change my point, which is it's still incredibly close to the ancient copies. They're very close to the original manuscripts. So it says, while the originals are lost.
That wasn't your point.
Okay, but the point is I said that they're still, I agree that they're copies. That's the point.
If you don't have an original, how can you know that your copies are close to the original?
Okay, so can you tell me where there are any original documents for a lot of these historical events?
It depends on which historical event we're talking about.
Right. So as you know, the Bible is really ancient.
Yeah, and so are the Vedics.
Yeah. So where are the original copies of those?
We don't have the original copies.
Exactly. So it's like you want to put so much pressure that the Bible needs to have the originals in order for it to be credible.
No, I say all of them. I say that. So for me, because I spent time studying Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and a bunch of other religions as well. And none of the older ones are going to have any original documentation from when the first person was writing it. None of them have that. So the trust is put in on, is the oldest copy close to what we have as a copy now? And that's where the trust comes in that people have within religions.
And I would say the trust is valid.
But there is still the point of you don't really know. Because even though on P52 we have 30 words from John, we don't know what the rest of P32 was. I mean P52, or what the rest of P52 was. Just those 30 words. So you can't say that the rest of whatever P52, P52, I don't know why I keep saying 32, P52 is going to be exactly what was copied and that we have in the 10th century or the Codex Sinaiticus, which is the 4th century. We can't legitimately say it's exact because we just simply don't know.
Okay, but you can also say that it's not exact either.
You can't say that it's not exact. No, we can't go either way. Which is where you have to trust something. You have to, or what believers say, they just have faith.
Yes, faith based on evidence, though. I mean, these are manuscripts that, yes, while they are copied, we don't have the original. Also date back to that time period, ancient times.
And what we
might be a little bit later.
And now
it still dates back very, very far in time.
Yeah. And now what we also know that dates back very, very far in time is that there were many different versions of Christianity in that 1st and 2nd century that disagreed tremendously with what turns out to be the traditional Christianity that most people believe in today. So
because people are always going to disagree and have their different interpretations.
So, and the only reason why the form of Christianity that people believe in today survived is because the Roman military and the Roman government decided so.
Yeah, after they unalived many Christians.
That has nothing to do with it. That's the one that they decided.
Actually, I think it does.
Not really, because if Theodosius had chosen to worship Mithra then the conversation we'd be having right now would be the validity of Mithra. It wouldn't be the validity of Jesus. That would be seen as some ancient religious cult that didn't survive, in the same way that the Gnostics, the Valentines, and the Marcions didn't survive.
I wouldn't agree, because there are a lot of way more contradictions in believing in Gnosticism than what is in the understanding of what we have in Christianity. The conclusion that they got.
Okay, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole, because that rabbit hole has nothing to do really with what we're talking
Nothing to do with what you just said.
Yeah.
Actually, it kind of does, because you mentioned Gnostics, right? And you know that they believe in other.
Okay, that's you're deflecting into something that has nothing to do
necessarily,
with the
because you're the one that
conversation.
mentioned the Gnostics, not me.
Me mentioning the Gnostics, but not in the context that I mentioned them in, is the fact that the only reason Christianity is the prevailing religion for not the majority of people on this planet, but just the prevailing one of the big three, is the fact that it had the support of the Roman government, and had the Roman government chosen a different religion, Christianity would just be a cult that died off a long time ago.
Well, I'm trying to tell you that before they accepted it, they hated it. That's the point.
What does that matter?
It does matter, right? Because why was there a sudden shift in what they decided to push and not push? Because at one point they hated the Christians. They actually were throwing them into the Colosseums, as you know, in history. All right. So they were persecuting Christians.
It was more politically viable to unite people, particularly for war, under one religion than it was several different religions. So Constantine was, being very savvy in that way. But when you say they, you got to be careful about, like, these are different rulers, different time periods.
Yes, but they were still under the Roman rule.
Different governments.
It was still Rome. That's my point. Okay. It was still under Roman rule.
Okay.
You got to remember, because people always make it seem like, oh, just because now they decided to use it. And mind you, someone can use the Bible in any way that they want. Doesn't mean that that's what Jesus calls. Hold on, let me just finish real quick. That doesn't mean that's what Jesus calls for you to do. Because if you were truly believe in Jesus, you wouldn't use the Bible to further push war. Because Jesus was telling you to love your enemy. That doesn't mean to push war.
Did you vote for Donald Trump?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Would you have voted for Barack Obama if you could have voted back then?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah. I don't see how this matters to
Did you vote for Kamala Harris? Did you vote for Kamala Harris?
Why does this matter?
Did you or didn't?
I mean, I answered your atheist question when it didn't matter.
Well, it actually does, because it kind of gives people a background on why you're pushing
this matters
so much.
Yeah, so this matters because it gives you background.
Okay, yeah, I voted for Kamala. Shouldn't have voted for her either, though. But yeah.
Okay, well, you say maybe.
Why did you ask?
You say, oh wait, you say maybe for Barack Obama. Let's just say if your headspace was voting for Kamala this time, you would vote for Barack back then. All right, so Barack became president. All right. Would you say during his presidency, that was a completely different style of governance than the current presidency?
From Barack Obama?
To now, yes.
Yeah.
Same thing happened in Rome.
I understand, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm telling you that someone could use Christianity or use the Bible in a way that it wasn't meant to be used. So even if they're using it to try to push war, that doesn't mean that's what the Bible tells you to do. That's my point. And clearly they were at one point against the Christians, right? So just as you mentioned, okay, yes, they decided to switch with a new leader or a new person, that the new emperor, whoever was leading in Rome at the time, right? But I'm mentioning that the attacks that they had on Christians before him, and it was a lot. It was a lot of emperors that didn't like Christians, actually.
Wasn't as much as you think. There was actually more persecution against the Jewish people by the Roman government than there was against Christianity. The majority.
There was a lot of
let me
persecution
finish.
against
Let me
Christians. They were
finish.
literally getting
Let
thrown to the
let
lions.
let
I
me
don't know
let me
what else to
finish.
tell you. Sorry.
Let me finish. Where do you base that information that they were literally getting thrown to the lions from? Who?
Historical documentation and evidence.
From who?
The people at the time.
What person?
Well, we know one of them was Emperor Nero, right?
Okay. And who wrote that? And when did they write it?
Tacitus.
Okay. So Tacitus is writing this around 116 to 120. Clearly almost 60 years after Nero and these so-called events ever happened. So Tacitus was not a witness, and he's basing these claims on the fact that Tacitus was also a part of he was a senator. He was a historian, and he was part of the Flavians and their dynasty, which had a political angst against the Julio-Claudian clan. Tacitus writes that Nero blamed the Christians, which others agree. Suetonius, Cassiodeo, they agree that
I was just gonna name them as well.
Right, they agree that he did that. But each one of those, every other historian, Roman historian, does not say or disagrees that Christians were thrown to the lions, that Christians were used as lamps to light the night up, which scientifically can't happen anyway, because your body would smolder. It wouldn't. You have to add stuff. You have to burn something else to burn the human to do that. And then that Nero was, it was the burning people and throwing them to the lions. So Suetonius, Cassio, all of them go against that thought process. They just said that he blamed the Christians. And then Tacitus actually mentions that he blamed the followers of Crestius, which there are inscriptions of Crestius, which date back to 16 BCE, which is before the Jesus era would have even started. So the name Crestius was already there. And it's a Christian scribe in around the 4th, 5th century who actually tried to scratch out the E and make it into an I. And in the notes, he put Christians. So we're not even 100% sure.
Actually, we are, because there's other famous accounts, right? The most famous one, which is Ignatius of Antioch, I think it's
Antioch.
An early Christian leader who was taken to Rome and reported that he was expected to fight beasts, and this was around early 2nd century. So that's actually a documented case of them throwing Christians, and he was a Christian leader to be exact. So of course they had to go for the leader.
Okay,
so to fight the beasts.
You're not.
Yes, they were thrown in there in front of the lines.
You're taking one person and making that into a whole bunch of people.
I'm pretty sure there's other ones. This is one of the most famous accounts.
Right. So you can't take in one person. That's like saying that one black man is a rapist, so all black men are rapists.
There's others. Do you not listen?
I listen, young lady. The question is, do you listen?
Well, I'm not gonna keep going back and forth with atheists. I'll pray for you guys.
No, I prefer your witchcraft. I prefer your witchcraft stays within your own home.
It's not witchcraft, sir.
It is witchcraft. It's witchcraft.
You're witchcraft. You are hating on the Bible. You are spreading misinformation about the Bible. You're not doing your
young
research,
Maggie.
right?
I really appreciate you coming up and
Jesus
the circle debate and everything.
God
And I'll draw a circle for you and put some salt circles and put some sigils that your mind opens up and you start critically thinking. I'll pray to the spaghetti monster on Saturn. God. You know, when I invited you up, I said, this dude ain't gonna come up here. He too busy. But I appreciate you.
Today was kind of a half day for me. I decided to not do too much this morning.
Yeah. Now, I know my normal conversation is about breaking down the Bible and stuff, but one of the things that I find very interesting, you know what, before we, yeah, no, we're gonna do that. One of the things I find very interesting, because I want to highlight some of the things that you talk about, because I do follow your channel, and I suggest that everybody follows Taharka a day on TikTok primarily, right? Or are you on other social medias?
Not yet. I will start spreading soon, but
man, you gotta get on.
all I can think before right now.
Spread your wings, man. You can use OBS or something to broadcast everything on everything. But I think one of the first videos of yours that I saw, I think you was talking about the Bight of Benin.
Mm-hmm.
And did you talk about the wall of Benin as well?
I don't think
No.
so. Maybe I did in a live or something.
Yeah, but that was one of the first videos that caught my attention of yours. I'm sure you might have made plenty of others, and I think you also made some videos about I know you made videos about the transatlantic slave trade as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind, sir, if you can break down a little bit of the Bight of Benin and the transatlantic slave trade for the audience. Now, you're on TikTok here, but this is also being broadcast over Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah. So, I mean, the slave trade itself, I think people have a lot of, the reason why I start doing the videos, I'll start here, is that people have a lot of misconceptions about the slave trade. Just like I started hearing people maybe 5-6 years ago begin to suggest that the slave trade wasn't real. You know, like they will argue, how could they feed all those people coming over here? And my response is always, they didn't. You know, they came from like little scraps and stuff. You know, a lot of people unalived, you know, on the way. And I don't know if you care about TikTok language or not. But,
I don't care.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, a lot of people, you know, way they had insurance on people. Some people sunk whole ships just because, you know, people were getting sick. They didn't want to deal with them no more, and they, you know, sunk the ship and they took the insurance money. You know, so I mean, there's a lot of that. So the slave trade itself was a horrific period. It did happen. And there was something specific you wanted about the Bight of Benin. What was it?
Oh, about the Bible? Oh,
You said the Bight of Benin. There was something specific you wanted about that, or?
Well, yes. So oftentimes you will hear, you know, the other family members will say that, well, black people sold other black people. So they were the ones who were selling their own people. So you can't be mad at the Europeans. Although that is a true statement, that there were kingdoms like the Dahomey who were at war with the Vayuda or Zeta people. They did sell them for guns. But their mentality of slavery was not the same mentality of slavery that the Europeans actually had. And there came a point where, even though the Dahomey kept doing slavery for a long ass time, but other people in the Gold Coast started saying, hey, this we're not doing this anymore.
And even the Dahomey eventually they switched to palm oil. As Dahomey was, I'd say it was an aberration. It was one of the few that, so you got Dahomey, then you got Tipotip on the east side of the continent, but it was one of the few that, you know, tried to make slavery its principal income. Most states and kingdoms did not, even if they were somewhat or even if they were participating. And what was going on in Dahomey, you had a Portuguese man named Felix de Souza, who came to Dahomey when King Gizzo, who was his name, John, he portrayed him in that film, The Woman King. But then King Gizzo was, his brother was the king. Felix de Sousa helped Gizzo become king. And so Gizzo kind of gave him like free reign. And de Sousa started to establish, you know, at the port in Ouidah, the slave trade is like a principal economy of the kingdom. He had over 100 children with the women there. Sometimes even with the women warriors, which was supposedly illegal.
Yeah.
You should, like, you're not even supposed to look at them, right? They're the wives of the king, right? And not wives in the literal sense, but they're protected by the king. You know, he didn't care. And so he had over 100 children and got those children, those mulatto children, involved in the trade.
Mhm.
And that's how they were able to, you know, to grow the trade there in the way that it was. He made his children professionals in slave trading. And that's how it became the abolition it became. But, you know, the argument, what I always ask people when they say, oh, well, the Africans were just as involved, or they sold each other and that kind of thing. I always ask people to provide one thing for me, which is, can you provide for me one African-owned slave trading company?
No. And I'm really trying to think of one, trying to think where there was an African slave trading not a company.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No. Well, you know, the African chieftains and kings were all monarchies, so they didn't have LLCs like the Europeans. So you can't really qualify it as a company.
Well, I mean, they didn't have the resources for one to create, you know, that type of enterprise. And not that they weren't capable of creating, they just didn't have the technological knowledge. Meaning, they didn't have ships that were capable of blue water navigation, right?
Mhm.
And they didn't need them because the ships that or the vessels that they created were mostly for travel in rivers and fighting along rivers and things of that nature. And their ships for those were way more technologically advanced than the Europeans. But the Europeans, they fought in the open ocean, right? And so they had to, over time, develop, you know, ships that would do that. And so, like, this whole enterprise was brought to African shores by Europeans. That doesn't mean that forms of servitude did not exist in West Africa, but as you were alluding to, those forms of servitude were very different from those existed in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the Europeans brought to the United States, like chattel enslavement. In West Africa, you still had your human qualities to you and I, as of everyone. One of the stories I always point people to is, I always butcher the brother's name, but Equiano. I point them to Equiano's story, and Equiano explains how when he was serving in the home in West Africa, the children in the home could not eat before he did because he was older than them. Right? They still respected his humanity,
Right.
even if he was a servant. So and that's the thing. So I point out those things, but I also point out that they didn't view themselves as African, right? They view themselves as Igbo and Wolof and Mbara and Congo and Ewe, and that's how they view themselves. And even within that, there were large clans that had rivalries with each other and things of that nature. Think of you having a really large family, and there's some cousins that you really can't stand.
No, I do.
Like,
That's let me tell you, that's a real thing for me because from my grandparents on my mother's side, now there's like 90 of us who are just in Cobb County, Georgia. But of course we're split. There's my mom and my brother and sister in our line. There's my Aunt May and her line, my Aunt Nett and their line, my Uncle Eddie and his line, Edward, so on and so forth. And as we get further down the line, you wouldn't know that some of us were family. And there is some of them that I tell them, you can never come to my house. I don't like you. I appreciate you as family member, but I don't like you. Right. So I can see, so you expand that out into more of a macro civilization. And then, you have the different divisions even within the group itself. Exactly. And let me switch you up a little bit. Not that I don't appreciate what you were saying. I do greatly, tremendously. I can probably talk to you all day. But you already said the part about not all Africans are African. I was going to say something about that. Not all people there thought that they were Africans. And people like to just put that blanket and say that, well, the Bible was in Africa. It was in Egypt. That is not all of Africa. There's a totally different civilizations. But I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of talking to the Hebrew Israelites. What is your opinion on the ideas that they cast that the Jewish diaspora came to the west coast of Africa and practiced Judaism, and they were the ones who were sold into slavery?
They are the most exhausting bunch to deal with. Maybe more exhausting than that.
You took the words right out of my mouth on that one.
But here's the thing, you can't give them an inch because they'll take a mile.
Yes.
Because there is evidence that some Jewish people came into West Africa. There is evidence of that. And I try to be careful with how I explain that. And when I say some, I mean like decimal point. You know what I mean? Like and it wasn't to establish like a homestead or what. They were coming in there for trade and things of that nature. So, we do have writings of people coming into that region, but the great majority of Jewish people, in the 90s%, went into Rome. Like you went into the region that one you already had affiliation with, even though this is who's coming after you, but it's very similar to the Babylonian exile, right?
Right.
This is the power, and we're familiar with how they operate. So this is where we're going, So this idea that this Jewish people came into Africa in droves and founded civilizations and things like that, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and especially when they try to use the and this is what reminded me what prompted me to invite you onto the show. I saw that we was both on a gentleman's text line yesterday when a Hebrew Israelite was bringing up the fact of the maps that were rendered in the 16 and 1700s by the English map maker whose name I just forgot. And he called it the Negro land, and then later on it was called the Kingdom of Judah. And so many of them jump onto the fact that it was called the Kingdom of Judah. And I want you to explain the rest of it. I know it, but I want to hear yours.
I said the name earlier.
I know.
It was Judah.
Yes.
Right. And the Portuguese rendered the J to use to spell it, and then people used that for a map. I think it was just like I only know of one map. It could have been another one, but most of the English were still maps were still using. This is one person, right? Most of the English maps, and they were still OUIDAH or X WEDA, I think, or it's WEIDA, or however they were, because it has it's like Sweden,
Right.
Um, and it has nothing to do with, it's like saying, and this is even like a closer pronunciation. It's like saying Edo in Nigeria is the same as Edo in Japan.
Okay.
That's not the same thing. It's just sometimes people come up with similar, but those two aren't even, similar remotely in that regard. It's just that that's how they, rendered it on the map.
Yeah. And I find it interesting when the Hebrew Israelites will say, oh, you're going to take the white man's knowledge, the white man's knowledge, the white man's knowledge. But you're trying to justify the transatlantic slave trade where all Jewish people and that we are them based on a white man's map.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, they don't go to that area. They don't go to Benin or any of those areas to see like, okay, what did those people call it back then? How did they map it out? No, you're going to take this Englishman and this Portuguese dude and take their map and say that proves that the black people are the people from Deuteronomy 28.
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking at people who changed the language or said it as best they possibly could to make it fit. And then it's even weirder when the one map maker who called it Negro land, he damn sure wasn't trying to place it in the time frame to say that those were Jewish people. He was calling it Negro land, which basically was just saying black land, right? And was something you said earlier, like the Jewish people, especially if in the annals of Titus, it is recorded that when Titus conquered Jerusalem and the rest of Judea, that he exported a large portion of the Jewish community all throughout the Roman Empire. He specifically says the Roman Empire, which would include North Africa, but that has nothing to do with West Africa. And it's most likely that some of those people converted over to Islam once the Arab nation came about, and they were conducting it,
A good portion of them, yes.
Yeah. And then they were participating in the trans-Sahara slave trade, not the transatlantic slave trade. So it doesn't match up with what the Hebrew Israelites try to put together. Right. And so go ahead.
Their Bible of sorts is From Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolf Windsor. And if you read this book, I mean, the sources that he's using are like the Hall of Fame of racist anthropologists who were trying to prove that there was no civilization in Africa that were developed by people indigenous to Africa, right? That wherever you find what they would call civilization, then that means it had to be one of the 12 tribes made it there and developed that region. So, those are the sources that he was using to try to justify, and they swear by that book.
Yeah. Okay.
It's crazy.
I know I'm taking up your time. I got two more questions, and then I'll let you have your day back. One question just popped up because of what I just saw in this, because somebody said this in the comments. All right. Now, when I was coming up, and in the late 80s, early 90s, I was Black Power, Ungawa, had my yellow, black, and green African necklace, everything. I was all black. Isis Papers was probably my favorite book to read back then. You might be too young for Isis Papers.
Dr. Chris Wilson.
Oh, you knew it?
Yeah.
Oh, chills down my spine. That's bullshit. So, Akibulan. People like to say, and I used to say it back in those days, that the real name of Africa is Akibulan. is there any a time frame or a point in history where all of Africa was united, or all of Africa called that landmass a Kibulon?
There's never a time in history where, and to be honest with you, like I wish there was.
Yeah.
Because that would solve a lot of problems. It's very similar to China.
Mm-hmm.
How it,
I develop into one nation. Yeah, I am hoping that President Kagame and the East African Federation can get everything squared away, and then that idea spreads across the rest of Africa. I've been watching that for years. Well, I've been watching Kagame ever since the Rwanda, because the Marine Corps unit that I was working with, we helped him during that time frame. We couldn't send troops in, but there were other things that we could do during the whole Rwandan genocide time frame. But Kagame rose up out of that, and I love what is going on with the East African Federation. I just hope that it can really solidify itself, and then the concept of doing that spreads out. I know that some of the former French colonies are looking to come into one currency together and pretty much will become like a EU format. So I'm with you. I hope that all does become one nation. I don't know if the North African is going to be a part of it, but they probably won't. But at least if the sub-Saharan nations can come together, that would be a huge benefit. Last question. And I know this is going to be very speculative. So do you know what Adam's calendar is?
Yes.
Okay. What are your thoughts on what Adam's calendar is and how far back that it dates?
We don't really know. People think maybe it was similar to what's it called? Naphtaliya, Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
And you see these like kind of circular, stone structures all up and down East Africa. Actually, I have a really good friend who's an engineer, but he studies the engineering of these sites, and he's pointing out, and he's an Ethiopian guy, a real brilliant guy. He's pointing out, like the similarities between them all, and question, was there like a huge migration that was occurring? We know that they had to have some type of religious significance or something to that, in that regard, but we don't actually know their full function. Now, how old they were, that's still disputed. Some people say like 60 to 100,000 years old, and some people say even older than that. Some people say only 10,000 years old, whatever. But the fact is, it's just we haven't done enough study on it to be able to say what it is.
Yeah. And I've seen those numbers where some put it at 10,000 and others put it at 200,000. When I was younger, I wanted it to be the 200,000 just because.
Right.
But you got to have some reality in there. Now, I do think because it does kind of look like, because at first some scientists thought that it was a cattle crawl, like animals were kept there.
Right.
But and then some have said that they found ancient gold mines or ancient mines in there. I don't know why they say gold, but they just always say gold mines. Some say they've seen some ancient mines in that region as well. But overall, what it demonstrates to me is that at least 10,000 years ago, that there were ancient African civilizations in that region. And that in order for them just to build that, regardless of what it was used for, cattle, home, mines, religious uses, you have to be a group of people and who have decided to live together and build something,
Right.
which to me denotes civilization. I don't just utilize like what most Western scholars use for civilization, which they would then say it starts in Mesopotamia. The moment a group of people say that we are going to build stationary places of living and we're going to do it together, in order for that to happen, you got to have rules and regulations. You got to have hierarchies. And so that's civilization to me.
Absolutely.
So Adam's calendar shows to me that there were civilizations already in Africa for what we know as for our known history. And of course, our known history is being updated constantly, because I can't wait for them to do even more stuff in Göbekli Tepe and Turan Tepe, because them things date back so far. They're dating back to almost 13,000 years.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of archaeological and anthropological work in Africa ended because of the independence movements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the West didn't control these countries in the same way anymore, and so since then, little funding has been going into various sites, things of that nature. But these countries are also focusing on how to build themselves up and become strong countries and things of that nature. So archaeology doesn't get that much. But in recent years, archaeologists in Africa, African trained, African born, have been making some headways. And really excited about how the field is developing right now. I'll give you an interesting area you should look at. It's called Dar-Tichit.
Okay, you gotta spell that one.
DHAR. EICHITT.
All right, Dart. Say it again.
DHAR. EICHITT.
Okay. All right, I got you.
Yeah, so that settlement began there at least 2200 BCE. And that's in modern Mauritania. And then the Nok culture, are you familiar with them?
Wait a minute, you said 20,000?
I said 2200.
2200.
2200, yeah.
Okay. And am I familiar with what?
The Nok culture, NOK.
No.
Okay.
I've seen that name before, but I can't tell you nothing.
Yeah. At least 1500 to 2000 BCE culture began there, but they're significant because they were smelting iron. Like iron smelting was happening at a time that, like you'll see, they have terracotta statues there, that date to probably 1500 or so. Iron date to between 500 and 1000 BCE. And so there's regions throughout, the Nok is probably the most popular, but there's some regions that they found recently that people were smelting iron older than that. So the idea that, it started in Turkey, it started independently in Africa around the same time or older.
Yeah, I think people miss out on stuff like that, not understanding that they want to think that something started in one spot and then it spread all over the place. But different people come up with the same idea all the time in different places. You don't necessarily, it's just whatever your environment is around you and whatever your culture is doing, you come up with stuff. Innovation has never stopped anybody.
Absolutely.
And people don't have to sit and wait.
So a really good book that mentions both of these, and it's not a long book at all. It's called Ancient Africa by Christopher Ehret. The last book he wrote before he died. It was like 5 years ago.
Christopher Ehret.
Ehret, E-H-R-E-T.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And it's maybe 200 pages. It's not long, you know, but it's chock full of information. And I think you enjoy it. I think he goes back to like things that were like, I think it's like 70,000 BCE that's been discovered in Africa until, you know, and verified to be at least 70,000. You know, so.
Yeah, I do have to get back into a lot of the African studies because, you know, like I said, that my African studies time frame was from like 86 till about 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of switched over. I switched over then and studied ancient China for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then India. And then when I found out that ancient Chinese people came from India, I was like, oh, well, not ancient Chinese people. The first Shaolin, the true first Shaolin came from India, which came from Africa. I was like, oh, hold on. Let me get into ancient India for a little bit. So that's usually how my studies go. They go in these little trails, or these rabbit holes. But I haven't reverted back because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of archaeology in Africa that I don't know about because I haven't looked at that archaeology in a long time, other than what they've found in like Egypt and Ethiopia, Sudan, places like that. Mainly because I spent the last 11 years doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
you know, I mean, a lot of things have been, you know, coming up. But you know, the interesting thing is, because you know what they say, the hallmark of civilization is they claim it to be writing, right? If you don't have writing, you don't have civilization.
right.
Which is folly because you know, there's civilizations that are just oral in nature, and then there's civilizations that are oral societies with writing, and it's usually the elite who have the writing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because, you know, things have been found that suggest that, you know, so if it's the elite usually that have the writing system, that means that you're not going to find an abundance of writing everywhere unless it became a civilization that was, you know, that, you know, like the United States or something like that, right?
Right.
So in more arid climates, it's more likely that you will find writing, right?
Right.
Not highly likely, but more likely than you would in wetter climates, right? More tropical climates, because things get destroyed easier in wetter climates. But people have been finding, you know, little clay things with like things that, you know, we don't know what it says, but it's the suggestion that writing is on it and all that. But at the same time, I know I'm like going down a hole here, but at the same time, I say to people, or I ask people, what is the difference between an oral history and a written history? Oh, well, written is, you know, it's written down, it's preserved. I'm like, well, you know, oral is too, it's passed on, you know, to people. Oh, well, written is more accurate, and it's more like, well, it's accurate to the time and the person who wrote it, but we don't know what's accurate about that.
Right.
You know, the most we can say is that an event occurred
Mm-hmm.
that made this people, you know, or this person write this. But all histories, there's no such thing as an objective history. All of them are subjective.
Completely.
Yeah.
And even when something is written, it doesn't, like you were saying, it doesn't necessarily mean that is going to be the most accurate thing, or is a recording accurate thing. Because and to take it back to the Bible, when we look at the Gospel of Mark, we know that at the end, that Mark 16, after verse 8 or 9, everything after that is made up.
Mm-hmm.
But people will read those parts today and swear by it, even though it tells you in their own Bible that everything after this, none of this is found in the original Mark. Well, in the oldest Mark manuscript of Mark. The rest of this is it was added later by scribes, but they'll accept that as the word of God. But we can see, even in the religious format, that writing doesn't necessarily mean accuracy, that people change things.
Yeah, and this is what I was going to say earlier, is that our dogmas today are not the dogmas of the time that, this thing was written, right? And then these words were written. People didn't need it to be 100% accurate, right? They understood that these were messages. They didn't need the figures to be real. They didn't need, you need all that. They understood that these were messages to convey. All religion is the deification of a people's culture. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. So all they needed was, these are messages. These are our values. These, all these things. And then we have deified it for the sake of posterity, so that this will, continue on. And so Matthew and Luke having two different, datings for Jesus, his birth. It's very clear, that these were political reasons for that. It's very clear that, she was saying, what word did she use? It was a literary
devices.
Well, yes, but why were they literary devices? What were they trying to convey? And they were trying to convey two different things. You can argue that Matthew putting it in the days of King Herod or Herod was largely he's trying to frame it within this newborn king of the Jews, flight to Egypt, this whole, he's trying to frame that story that we all, come to know, and everyone who practices the faith loves. That story of the flight to Egypt and all this he had a specific political reasoning for framing it that way.
Yeah.
Right? Luke's framing it. It was a very specific, reason for framing it that way. And it didn't have to be true in their time. And if they would do that, like if Christians would just go, oh, okay, well, their arguments would be better, They don't. Everything has to be accurate,
Yeah, and because they, in what is it, 2 Peter, I think, where he says that the Bible is God breathed. So now they have to make it all exactly fit together. They have to harmonize the whole thing because they believe that it was all God breathed. When back then, those people didn't, like you said, they didn't view it that way. They understood, and it's funny you bring that up about Matthew and Luke. Luke needed the story to be palatable to the Hebrew people, the Israelite people. So he needed the Messiah to come out of Egypt because of an Old Testament prophecy that I will call my sons out of Egypt. Luke, and both of them needed him to be born in Bethlehem. So the census in Judea was a mechanism or a literary device to get Jesus being born out of Bethlehem so that it can fit the whole Davidic line. And if and the people back in 2nd century, 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century, they would have understood it from that point of view,
right?
And not be so dogmatic about it having to be exact, right? Because they were looking at the overall story, right? But yet they still had problems with it because, like I did a video the other day talking about how the Jewish scholar Typhon, when he was talking to Justin Martyr, he told Justin Martyr, "You believe in this stuff, and you have no proof." Now this is a 2nd century person saying, "Y'all ain't got no proof of this testimony that y'all believe in." So you had people who were saying that this is some bullshit, even though we know you trying to create this Messiah, but the Messiah that you're creating is not the Messiah because he doesn't sit on the throne of David. He didn't reinstitute the Levitical sacrifices. his seed is still not sitting on the throne of David because there's a Roman who's sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. I really feel Luke intentionally put his birth under Caesar Augustus to convey this kind of like empire-wide order and savior type of language. Like to put it under that was kind of like this the real savior and peace bearer is not Augustus, right?
Right.
But this kid that was born in Bethlehem, because of the all the stories then about Augustus, and I mean these were literary devices for a reason, they were not just simple mistakes.
No.
They did this for a reason, and that's what we were trying to get Maggie to understand.
Yeah, I don't think that elevator was going all the way up. It wasn't. That thing that she's in a 14-story building, but the elevator only goes up to the 3rd floor. That's it. Because she was not going to comprehend that there are floors above that. It has to be the dogmatic thing that she believed in, which is what I find in a lot of religious people. That even when you point out to them the contradictions or historical issues with their book, they can't let go of the narrative that they've agreed to. And in most cases, indoctrinated into. So, yeah. But I don't want to hold you up anymore. And
all right, brother. Yeah, I'm going to go get lunch.
Yeah, you go do that. I appreciate you, Taharka. I will bother you in the future, though. I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna bother you in the future.
You do that.
Yeah, I think I'm your senior, so yeah, yeah. But I appreciate you. And once again, everybody go find Taharka a day on TikTok, follow his page, support his channel, because also I think he's doing a great thing as far as communicating and connecting the diaspora together, the African diaspora together, because we do have there is a unity that we can have in order, and not just, it's not about being racist or anything like that, or some type of one race against the other, but just the only way this world is going to come into balance, in my opinion, is if we're all standing on equal plane. As long as there's a lower plane and a higher, we are never going to have the fairness in this world that I think everybody should want. So thank you for all that you do.
And people don't give you equality. You have to get it for yourself.
You're damn right.
And that's just the thing. But I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for all that you do as well.
All right. Thank you, Tara.
Take care.
You too.
Peace.
Peace. All right. That was I appreciate that. That was great. I know the people have been holding for a very, very long time. If I do not know the order, so I'm just going to start clicking. I'm just going to click on somebody and see what happens. That person is gone. Let's see if Mandela is there. That person is gone. Let's see if the Evolving is there. Good afternoon, young lady. Wait a minute. That's a different person. Hold on for a second. Cherry. Purple guy. Purple gray. I got purple gray, then cherry. Purple gray. Purple gray going once. Going twice. PG for the third time. Disconnect that one. And Cherry. Cherry?
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm Cherry. I'm an agnostic atheist.
Outstanding.
I admire what you do here. Me and Taharka are mutuals. You're actually one of the first people I saw, like, with the name or title that says Deconstructing Christianity on YouTube. I would say maybe over a year ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even.
Oh,
Has it been that long?
oh, I've I've been on here for 11 years.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
while. I would say about 2 or 3 years ago, I saw your channel. Like your channel on YouTube was the first time that I saw the words together, deconstructing followed by Christianity.
Oh,
And
cool.
at the time, it hadn't really had like an explosion of like content and creators and discourse that it does now.
Yeah,
So
I've noticed
yeah,
that.
you were like one of the first and only people I saw at the time. But it was kind of more so like I saw your YouTube shorts, but it was I didn't really engage that much because I had already, I guess, quote unquote, deconstructed
Hmm.
as I consider myself like agnostic atheist. So whenever I saw your content, it was kind of more like preaching to the choir.
Right.
So I would just kind of like or repost or whatever, but I wouldn't like deeply engage with it because I was like, I don't even need to go that deep. Like, it's false. Like, it's false. Well, there ain't nothing to talk about.
Now I understand.
Yeah.
Actually, there are times where I literally get bored because I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, how many times am I going to talk about the same thing over and over again? But it always seems that there's a new person or new people who's never heard it or haven't heard it from a different angle. And so that kind of made me continue because, I first started this because with my kids being so young, when I deconstructed, I wanted them to have the information that I have, but I knew they couldn't understand it when it was, 12 years old. So I originally made these videos, started making these videos for them. I really didn't, to be honest, I didn't care about other people, whether or not they be. Yeah, because when I was coming up and I was studying, even in the 90s, the internet wasn't the internet when it came out, and even in the early 2000s, it wasn't the internet.
Yeah, you was doing that legwork.
Yeah. What you talking about? I was being in the basement. It sounds exciting. Oh, I was in the basement of the Tel Aviv Museum. That shit is dusty, and it's a lot of reading. I don't even want to read a book anymore because you had to do so much reading back then. You had to find the books, and they weren't easy to find, and you have to send information. If you wanted PhD dissertations on a subject matter, you have to mail it in and pay for it, and then they send it from the Library of Congress. Yeah, it was a lot of legwork back in the day. So I appreciate the internet. I don't know if you was on here when the young lady was laughing about using AI. In my mind, I wanted to say, you laughing at AI, you obviously just don't know how to use it right.
Hey, how to plug in hold on, because my Uber Eats might be here. But and I'm young. The not to the youngins, because they starting to call me auntie. But I'm 33. So to you, that 33 is young, but
yes, since I have a 30-year-old, so yeah.
Yeah, but to the 20-year-olds, I might as well be 53. But I am retired from the Navy. I got retired from the Navy when I was 30.
All right, Swabby.
Yeah, after almost 10 years, I was a nuclear electrician there. But now I'm a solo traveler. I've been to 12 countries on my own. I live in Guatemala City right now.
Oh,
and I also host Deconstruction Lives in my own way. Everyone has their own way and style. And honestly, I feel like no way is the wrong way because they have 40K denominations. And
yes,
like who you may be able to reach, like as a grown man, like with your expertise, like with your background, with your energy, smoking your cigars, like you might be able to reach a totally different audience than who I reach as a 33-year-old woman, solo traveling, never been married, no kids. Like I bring in a whole different group of people watching me. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah. I feel like we all have a lot of bases to cover because they are under spells.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really jarring. I don't really like to get too much into the biblical text I kind of like to zoom out and look at like the bigger picture things. Like, one, like similar to, I'm gonna have to go in a minute because my Uber Eats is coming, but I might come back if you're still here. But like similar to like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, when this was written, we knew that we understand that America was built on this, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, da 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 da. But we also understand that when this was written, it wasn't written with certain groups of people in mind.
Right.
Right. And I like to use that as a analogy. Like when the Bible was written, it wasn't written for no random Black woman from Texas. Like
No,
mind.
it wasn't.
I was not in mind. I'm sorry, but Maggie, she was not in mind. You know what I mean? And what saddens me the most is seeing like people in my demographic just go so hard when people in my demographic had no say or hand in the compilation of these documents.
No, they didn't. And, you know, one of the examples that I like to use about that is, you know, every civilization thinks that their form of civilization is going to last forever. So when Leviticus 25 was breaking down who you can make as slaves and permanent slaves, they didn't have a concept that about 2,500, 3,500 years from now, the majority of the world is going to say that slavery is wrong.
Correct.
So they're going to
put. I'm still going to be here if I drop down in the comments, but I'm still here. I just lose service in that minute, but I'm still here, y'all. Yeah.
So they're going to put that slavery is good to go as long as it's somebody that's not of your tribe, and you can have them as property and you can beat the shit out of them, because they didn't have that concept. Like you were saying, they didn't. Well, I guess the elevator won, but they didn't have that concept. And she's absolutely right. I hope she does come back. She was in the Navy. I was in the Marine Corps, so you know I got jokes. But also, but that is a good point. And the other point that she made, I tell you guys all the time, you should do your own version of a show, because there are people who aren't going to get it from me. And that's something that I was told a long time ago when I wanted to do something else. And the person who told me was like, he may inspire 100,000 people, but there's 10,000 people in that group that may hear it from me better than they can hear it from him. So, well, there could be a group of 100,000, and 10,000 of them are not going to get it from him, but could get it from me a lot better. So there are people out there who crave this information, crave this type of connection, but they may not be able to get it from me. There are people who don't watch my channel because I smoke my cigars. And there was a time frame I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But now I'm like, I don't give two shits. If you don't like it, that's your own problem. They were servants and happy to be servants. That's the lie that people say. One, Leviticus 25 clearly says in verses 44 through 46, I believe, that from the foreigners you may buy your male and female slaves, not servants, slaves, and that you own them as property and can pass them down as inheritances to your sons and daughters. And these are what you get from the foreigners. That is different, wholly different from what Leviticus 25, 34, 35 says when it's talking about Hebrew slave to Hebrew slave, right? And when it talks about Hebrew slave to Hebrew slave, it does mention that if someone says, I love my master. And that's only in a situation where they give you a wife and you and your wife have children and you want to stay with them because the wife and the child don't go free, which shows the male chauvinistic ideas of this book, that it was all about dudes and all about Israelites. And I think that's one of the attraction up to the Hebrew Israelites, of them wanting to desperately be Israelites because of the Bible's fascination with promoting that one group. But those writers had no clue that the Civil War in America was going to happen, that England would give up their slaves, that all the other European countries would give up theirs. They would maintain colonization and Jim Crow, but then even that would fade out. None of them had that concept, that idea at the time frame. So when they wrote this, they didn't know any of this. I think I saw my my wife posted something. I could have swore I just saw my wife post something. I don't know if I should trust my lying eyes. I could have swore I saw her on Facebook or YouTube. Oh, I did. Oh, good to go. Thank you for letting me know. We had a recall on our car, so we had to take it in. So she just let me know the car is good to go, ready. Which means I don't have to go pick her up. That's what that means. So we've been on 2 wheels for the last 2.5 days. 2 wheels. Go on the back of that motorcycle and riding in this hot Texas sun. Oh, and Cherry said she was a Texas girl. If you're in the comments, Cherry, I love what part of Texas? Only because we're in San Antonio. I know you guys have been commenting, and most of the time, just like normal on Facebook and YouTube, y'all be arguing at each other. So I know y'all was talking about some Muslim stuff and all that kind of stuff. If anybody would like to come up, even though I don't have to pick up my wife today, I'm still not going to be on here till 5 o'clock. We know that's not going to happen. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure I didn't miss any super chats. If you do a super chat, I would definitely read that super chat on here. It would definitely get read, even if it's against me. And thank you. And I've seen some roses and hearts and all that kind of stuff on TikTok. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. Right. Love thy neighbor means love your Jewish neighbor. Yeah. People don't understand that at all. Iron Man. People don't understand that at all. That love thy neighbor, when the Jesus character is supposedly saying that, he's not talking about loving everybody. He's just talking about your fellow people. Your fellow people. That's it. Did the Hebrews participate in chattel slavery? According to the Bible, yes. According to the Bible, they participated in chattel slavery. You have first what I was talking about in Leviticus 25, but you also have Exodus 20. And those were the rules that they were giving for chattel slavery and how you treat them and so on and so forth. But you also, if you believe the book of Joshua, according to the book of Joshua, they were to go in and annihilate all the Canaanite people who were living in this so-called promised land. Now, for one group, and I can't remember if it's the Danites or the Manasseh, but I think it's the Danites, they had issues dominating the people in their area. And so they went and Joshua told them to make slaves of those people who they couldn't conquer. Now, when you read some of the basic stories, though, Hagar was a chattel slave to Abraham. The other 2 women, Bilhah and so Leah and Rachel had handmaids, slaves, and Bilhah was one of them, and I forgot the other one's name. Those women were chattel slaves, but then they became slave wives to Jacob. So yes, the Hebrews also had chattel slavery. Cherry from Texas. What part of Texas?
Houston, born and raised.
Ah, I should have figured.
Yeah, and all 4 of my grandparents, my mama, my daddy, and all 4 of my grandparents.
Well, I was just curious. We moved to San Antonio 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. So
I don't go there enough. Yeah. Somebody said Hagar was the princess of Egypt. What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay. How can you be given as a gift but not be a slave?
Exactly. And she didn't have a choice. And then when Sarah kicked her out, when Sarah forced Abraham to kick her out the first time, when God or the angel came to her, he said, "Go back to your mistress and be a good slave to her." So, yes, she was a slave. I don't know. See, that mentality, that they have to reconcile. This is what you was talking about. They want to reconcile how we feel about slavery now. So they have to make the Bible not condone slavery so that they can feel good about how they live now.
Retroactively.
Exactly. Because back then, those people weren't, they were thinking that men were always going to be in the same dominant position over women. Women weren't going to have a choice in the matter. They can give them some bitter herbs if they think that she's cheating on them, and that there will be slave wives. And so for them, writing that in that book was part of the course. I'm sure the founding fathers of America didn't think that there would ever be some freedom in America. Because like you were saying about the Constitution, we the people did not include anyone except land-owning white Anglo-Saxon males. That's it. It didn't,
Exactly.
yeah, it didn't include women, and it didn't include no one of color, and it didn't include half of the European population. Because they
And
didn't.
then to take it a step further, the rainbow community, non-binary people,
Mm-hmm.
T people, they couldn't have conceived of that.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? Now, as a person, like, for a long time, I called myself a lesbian. I had someone who was a member, they were a woman who changed, you know, and I'm not going into that, but they were on my panel and they were like a full-on staunch Christian, crashing out at me, going off on me. And everybody in my comments and on my panel was confused, and they were like, aren't you a T person? And they was
Right.
like, yeah, and praise God, and praise the Lord. And we were like, what are you?
I have never, and I've said this on 11 different videos, I cannot comprehend how anyone in that community is Christian. This book don't like you. Why are you still Christian?
Because they were like, they were so upset with me. And do you remember, this is an old term, right? Now I'm showing my age, all of my 33 years. When people said thought, or she's a
Yeah.
thought, she's a hoe, or whatever, that hoe over there.
Yeah.
I call it that atheist over there. They have like thought syndrome where they hyper focus on the atheist in front of them. Like earlier when you were giving a rundown of your credentials, which is important, right?
Right.
But instead of focusing on the message that you are conveying, they want to do a behavior. Like for me, which I can out credential anybody. Like I was a nuclear electrician in the Navy, and then I have a master's degree in reading comprehension, and I have a bachelor's degree in early child care education. And then I also am fluent in Spanish, and I've also been to 12 countries by myself with no help. I also live abroad full time right now in Guatemala City. So if we want to talk about credentials, we can talk about credentials. But I noticed that with the men, it always comes down to what are your credentials. With me, well, you know what they like to do? Behavior analysis. Well, Terry, your tone, your inflection. Well, you didn't have to say it like that. Well, I can tell you got the Jezebel spirit in you. Look at how you curse. Look at how, and it's like, you like to psychoanalyze that atheist over there. You're focusing on my behavior. You're doing a behavior analysis of me, like you're my boss, instead of the words that are coming out of my mouth.
That happens. So, and I find that they do that when they know they can't combat the information that you're bringing forward. Right. That's when they want to do that, and try to, let me go and deflect a different route and try to come at you personally instead of just, can you go against what I just said? Like if I was talking to you about some nuclear engineering stuff, you're going to run circles around me. But if I try to laugh you off or discredit your personality, then I feel like I'm winning because now, and I got you upset or angry or your tone is not the right way, which I am jealous a little bit of the nuclear part that you said, because that was offered to, that was offered to me. So I went to the Marine Corps and that was offered to me. But my recruiter told me that unless I was, and this is of course back in the 1990s, that unless I was in the top I think 1 or 3% of my class that I was going to be on a nuclear sub. And as soon as he said sub, I went right next door to the Marine Corps. I was like, hell no.
Would have been because the only reason that I wasn't is because women are on subs.
Yeah. See.
So I was on the LHD-5, which is a little bit smaller than the aircraft carrier. You know, the aircraft carrier carries 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
The LHD-5, the max is 3,500.
Yeah.
So I was working on the radars on the USS Bataan, which is the IFF tech. I was a identification friend or foe tech. The radars on the LHD-5.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Yeah, but the only reason you definitely would have been on subs, but they don't allow women on subs because they hot rack too.
Yeah.
Which means it's like they do the 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and
Yeah.
they share a bed.
Yeah. I don't see how y'all do that. Some of the ones. So I did spend a year on the LPD, and I saw them dudes doing that sometimes. I was like, how y'all sleeping on the same bed some other joker just slept on? I know y'all changed the sheets, but y'all ain't got.
Real different.
Yeah, you ain't got no mattress protector, and I don't even know if mattress protector was around back then. But I was like, I ain't sleeping on the same rack some other joker slept on. That's it. Not a dude. I ain't doing that. Especially a Navy guy. I see them when they get off ship at them ports. I see them little raggedy things they be messing with. I ain't sleeping on nothing they slept on.
Let me tell you the first thing I noticed when I joined, like when I really got to the fleet for real, which was like a group of non-colored men smell like sunscreen and sunblock. I never noticed that. Hit with the smell of sweat, sunscreen, and sunblock. I said, I did not know that people really wore sunblock like this. I've never smelled so much sunblock in my life. I
Yes.
said, wow.
Oh man. You know, I never thought about that, but she is absolutely correct. Because especially anytime when we pulled up to Benidorm and Barcelona, and them jokers went to the beach, whoo, they come back stank, smelling like that.
It's powerful. It's
Yes,
powerful.
it
yeah.
is. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Let me get back. I will get distracted.
Yeah, but see, and what do you say to the reason that I talk about Christianity and stuff so much is because one, it penetrates every aspect of our life. Like all the time I get comments and stuff from people and they say like, oh, like Cherry, you're so pretty, you keep your nails done, you keep your makeup done, you keep your hair done, or you travel a lot. Do content about that. Like do content about that. You'll make way more money. You'll have way more followers. Way more people will like you. If you just, posted your nails, posted your little makeup routine, posted you curling your hair and went on about your day. Like, stop telling everybody that you're an atheist. Stop doing that. And I'll tell them, like, the reason that I talk about this so much is because what is the point of me talking about what products I use in my hair if billions of women cannot even show their hair because they're wearing a hijab?
Mm-hmm.
What is the point of me showing my lip combo if all these women from the South can't even wear red lipstick because they Southern Black aunties and grandmas say that's a Jezebel color. That's a whore color. What is the point of me getting my nails done if people feel like that's a sin? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we have to address the root cause of this stuff. I can't just sit up here and be pretty. Like, this is real shit going on. This is real life. People are really indoctrinated out here. You heard that girl up here earlier. This is real life.
Yes. Okay, I gotta be me, or my audience is gonna know that I'm being two-faced if I don't. I agree with you, but I also agree with your friends, the people who are telling you this, which is why people who have been in this space and they want to do something, I tell them do have two separate pages that are not connected to one another. Yes, one day you may run the risk of people connecting, but do both. Like, I also do a relationship page, kind of, sort of, but I definitely have a cigar page. Because those are two other things that I'm interested in. I really should be doing a business page because I love business more than I can talk about business more than I can talk about anything else, right? And I can talk about, so if I can talk about this stuff as much as I do, you can imagine with business I could just go down the rabbit holes and do a lot more in business. and I do consulting on the side. So I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying don't do what you're doing, but if you have time and you want to do it, then I would say do both, because there's nothing wrong with doing both.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are. Oh, thank you for the big heart thing. I don't know what it means, but thank you. Because I have one of my, she's not my biological daughter, but I've been around her since she was 7 years old. She just moved to Thailand. And of course, you know, I give her all the advice in the world as far as like how to run her channel and that sort of thing. And living abroad is a big thing. You live in Guatemala, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Ever since you said Guatemala, all I can think about is some pollo comparo right now. I don't know. Y'all have a pollo comparo in Houston? I don't think they're good. No.
Wait, first of all, hold on.
But that Guatemalan chicken is good, girl.
Hold on, please. I mean, pollo brujo right now.
So you got that.
Pollo brujo. So yeah, let me show you the view too.
Hey, man,
That's the view from the 10th floor. I'm in a 22-story building, but I'm on the 10th floor.
Let me swap the spot. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. I'm gonna open this door because it's gonna be loud. See?
It's all right. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And like it's been hard for me to try to find the balance, because I am passionate about you know, to quote, I think of this almost every day. To quote School Days, Spike Lee. I love me some Spike Lee. You know how to expand yourself, click your box again and then expand. What is it to quote at the end of School Days? When he goes,
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like, oh man, it's like to even get to unlock certain parts of life, you gotta wake up first.
You absolutely do.
Like, you're not gonna get to Thailand if you go on to church every Sunday.
No, you're not. I mean, it doesn't work. It is a hindrance. And you know, the child that moved to Thailand, you know, even when she had a lot of pressure from her family to remain in the religion that she's in. But you know, her and I had a lot of side conversations. So going to Thailand was also a freedom thing for her, to get away from her family. And thankfully, none of her family watches this, so they won't know that. But it was a thing to get away from them, to get away from all the religious pressure. And she was in this SDA church. So, you know, that's tremendous. That's more pressure than the average Christian church of how to live your life and what you can and cannot do. And they seriously tried to dehumanize her when she expressed that she had other sexualities that they don't care for. So yeah, it can be difficult for people to break free and be themselves if they're constantly being berated by this religion that wants to keep a person, you know, in a state of shame and guilt all the time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're in her corner. She gonna be all right. She got a person in her
Yeah.
corner.
She got there and almost left immediately, but I was on her butt about, no, you're gonna stay there. Everything's gonna work out. It's gonna be great. And the next day she got a job. So it's like, no, you're not gonna give up, because what you're coming back to is gonna be oppression. What you want to come back to Atlanta for and deal with the oppression of your family? Hell no. You know, so no. So she's still there. She's still doing her thing, you know, and you know, you're there doing yours, and you can do a lot more. You have the ability, and that you got that Guatemalan chicken right out the front door. So
yeah, this pollo brujo.
I gotta drive an hour and a half to get me some Guatemalan chicken around here. Gotta go up to Kyle, Texas.
I do deconstruction lives. I've been doing them for around 6 months, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about me though is once I get irritated, I'm crashing out. Everybody's like, I try to stay the course, and like I'm not like your chat earlier, they was like, "Oh, you're so patient with her. You're so patient with her," because they probably have seen other deconstruction lives and how like they don't have that groundedness that you have and Taharka have, but that comes from lived experience, right?
Well, that, and I try to give people this, whatever energy they give me, I'm gonna give it back to them. So she wasn't, as long as she's not, as long as the person doesn't start yelling and start cussing, then I'm gonna stay the same way with them. Now, when she did have a moment where she tried to get all funny acting, that's when I called her. Look, I was like, "Little girl," and she was about to, she was about to get a little cussing out. But I was like, so I try to just give people the same energy if we can. That way, we can have good discussions and whatnot. But I've had a few people that I've had to cuss out.
Well, yeah, you definitely inspired me to keep going with it. Like, I've been trolls. They don't really bother me too much. I just feel sorry for them. I see them as like indoctrinated people. And also the misogyny comes out too, because you see the men, like how they react to me, myself, and other like women deconstructionists. Even the same men that'll come on here and just speak to you all nice, they'll come to my channel and just lose it. Like I had one, like I was proving his arguments wrong, like scripture by scripture, source by source. Then he just gonna crash out and be like, "You need some D, and you probably don't get laid." And it's like, okay, dude, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, they're not gonna do that with you. And like, that's what I'm saying. The misogyny that comes out, that's trained,
Yeah, I've seen that with people left my live and then they go over to like Thinkers Live and then they're a totally different person.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's bullshit.
Yeah, you have some guy, I think his name is Back It Up something. It starts with back. When I've seen it here, he's been real chill with you, but when he's on my friend Bab, the fun auntie atheist on my panel, he always telling us like, "Oh, and you need a retwist, by the way. And when's the last time you've been on a date?" And it's like, sir, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Right.
They like to derail, and they also.
Oh, sorry about that.
And because you selling your body, baby, I'm traveling off that military dollar, okay? Military dollar.
You got that 100, girl?
That 100.
Yep. Now, okay. Now I'm gonna let some other people get up here, but let me ask you one question though, and this is I'm gonna try to put this as bland as possible, so not to dig too much into your business. So you have the 100, but you're living abroad, right?
Yeah.
And are you still using a U.S. financial service?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't like to do so.
So open up like a JP Morgan International account and then still allow your direct deposit to go into your, like I use Navy Federal, still allow it to go into like Navy Federal, but then transfer it every month to the JP Morgan International. And then that way you don't have to deal with any of the other crazy stuff. And the military one is never going to change. But if you decide to do SSDI, if SSDI sees it going into a foreign bank, they will stop it.
Ooh.
So you definitely want to have that. If you plan on doing that, you want that JP Morgan International.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I've been trying to figure out that situation literally the past like couple months. I didn't know what to do about that situation. So I appreciate you, sir.
Yes.
Keep doing your thing. Bye. In the comments.
All right. Thank you very much, Jerry. Appreciate you. All right. I got McTime over here on Facebook, YouTube first, and then I'm coming back to TikTokers.
Yo, Coach, what's up, Coach? The most beautifulest thing in the world is a black atheist woman. I'm so glad to hear her voice because you don't see too many. She was in Houston.
No, she lives in Guatemala City, Guatemala right now.
All right, but I heard y'all.
Oh, my bad. Hold on. Now she's from Houston.
Okay, well, she probably know where. She probably heard my little small town. I think you told me you heard of Beaumont too.
Yeah, I fly through Beaumont every time I go to the East Coast. I roll fast through Beaumont.
You gonna chill like that, man, coach? You can always come chill with me.
We spent the night in Beaumont when we moved to San Antonio. We spent the night in Beaumont, and probably in early January we might be either we're gonna stop in Baton Rouge on our way back, or we're gonna stop in Beaumont on our way back.
Yeah.
Just not on the east side of Beaumont again. Ain't stopping on the east side no more.
Oh, yeah, that's where I'm at. Well, that's where I'm from. They call it the South End, but it's really the east side.
Yeah. Well, and I'm saying along I-10 as well. So we just
that sound about where I'm from. Straight ghetto. Got church on every corner. Anybody want to next to all these churches be by all this God? They got a lot of God out here.
So just but I always, when we travel, I always announce, most of the time I announce where we're going to be. If there's an availability for us to like last time we was in Baton Rouge, we had dinner with some people who follow the channel. You know, even if we're going to be there overnight, you know, I let people know. Now, like this last trip that we went to Biloxi, that was for my wife's birthday, so I ain't want to see none of y'all. Now,
well, I don't blame you. That's personal time, though.
Yeah, but next time we're traveling, anytime we travel, I usually announce it. So there'll be a few times that we are either going through Beaumont or stopping in Beaumont.
Okay. Well, I got a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 questions that I want to jump into this something about Jesus, because you got somebody in your YouTube chat. They might, if they still there, Elizabeth something. And I want to prosecute Jesus as right quick. But first thing, another thing I like about hearing a black atheist woman is, you know, they're not raising their children to be a slave and to worship. And the second thing is, you heard of Bob Black Atheist Rants?
Yeah, I just saw that. I just saw that one a couple days ago.
Y'all two need to get linked up. That dude, he's very young, man. He's like in his 20s. And he's very knowledgeable. I don't know if he got more knowledge than you or what, but y'all need to link up, man, because he's young, and it's not really all of his fault, but he has between him and his host, they end up having more of a contentious matches on the calls than that's just, this is just my opinion anyway, which probably ain't worth a damn, but it seemed more contentious than productive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just found him a couple of days ago. That's what I was mentioning when I don't know if you was on here when I was talking to Taharka. That's when I saw Taharka's name, and that reminded me to, you know, invite him to the live. Because I've been meaning to do that for the last couple of months. But yeah, I just saw him. I was just watching him. You know, he goes on pretty early in the morning, so I was watching him.
Y'all kind of compete. Y'all kind of competing. You catch his last couple of hours when he about to go off.
Yeah.
And you have an hour or two. Y'all compete for about an hour or two.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, but I reach out.
But
I'll probably end up reaching out. I'm just checking him out right now. And Cherry just said he's a mutual of hers.
Yeah, he very knowledgeable, man. Very knowledgeable dude, man. He made me feel. I tell him all the time. I'm just another voice in the chat. He probably don't know who the hell I am. Tell him all the time, man. You make me feel like an old fool, y'all. So slow down, slow down, y'all.
But let me correct one thing though. It's not a competition. It's just different voices connect with different people. You know what I mean?
No, I think I would like to see maybe somebody who had just about as much knowledge as him, get with him and gets, more tactics on how to talk with people. Not more for like the knowledge part, just the tactics on how to talk to people, how to hold people feet to the fire, how not to be contentious, how to make the conversation more productive than just y'all exchange insults and then you hang up type of deal. You know what I'm saying?
When I saw him, I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought he did a great job, especially when he was talking to this Hebrew Israelite the other day. He was talking to this Hebrew Israelite, and he was weighing his ass out very politely until the dude started getting agitated.
And there's really no way of preventing that, because they are trained to get agitated because they've been domesticated like puppies. Like when you mess with their master.
Mm-hmm. What else you got, man?
But all right, Jesus. Why would Jesus accept the Greek title, Christ. To me, the lie is in the name. Because Jesus was a Jew, and he said he came. Because at first I was thinking he called the lady a dog, but once I read that verse in Mark and Luke again about him and the woman at the need help for a baby, he told her some what I got is not for the dogs, it's for the Israelites. So he called everybody else's culture a dog. Why would he accept a Greek title?
Well, okay, so to put it in the right context, the Jesus character is not accepting a Greek title. It would have if it was written in Aramaic, and it was certainly if these events had happened, it would have been spoken in Aramaic. He would have been called I think it's Mishiach or some shit like that. I
Exactly.
don't speak fluent Hebrew, so I don't know how to say everything right.
Well,
But-
it'd be basically Messiah.
So, it's just the fact that the New Testament was written in Koine Greek, which is one of those identity markers that let us know that there ain't no damn fishermen and no illiterate people wrote this down, that it was written in Koine Greek, which is something for more of the elites. So they're just translating the Aramaic term Mishiach to Christ, to Christos. And that's all. It's just a translation. It wouldn't have been him, that person accepting it.
I understand that, but all right, now bear with me on this. What you think? How you think Trump would take it if you call him El Presidente?
I mean,
That's what I think Jesus would do. That's what I think Jesus would have done. If you would have called him the Christ, he would have done the same thing Trump would have done, and you call him El Presidente.
Well, if Mexico was lording over the United States, and Trump was the puppet regime in the United States, then he would just accept that in their language they're calling me El Presidente,
I got you.
which is the same thing as in English, the president.
I think, to be honest with you, I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can't make bones about translations, because that's all they really are. They're just translations.
Yeah. But it's not really the translation I'm talking about. I'm speaking to the character of the man. I think he's just as racist as the people that follow him. You know, birds with feathers flock together. They racist like that. I mean, you go talk to one of them MAGA people and call him a Mexican name. They ain't gonna like that shit. Why would he accept somebody else's culture over him? I think Jesus would have been preferred to be called the Hebrew Messiah or the Messiah, but he would not like being called Christ because that's Greek stuff. And then on top of it,
you got to look, but see, you're still looking at it from more of a modern day point of view. Think back to Jim Crow laws, right? Jim Crow time frame. My pappy, he was telling me about those times, and he hated the fact that as a 40-year-old man, he had to accept this 10-year-old white boy calling him boy, and he had to accept it because he was in the oppressed group. And that was the culture, and there was nothing he can really do about it. So,
but he still didn't like it.
Yeah, he didn't like it, but he had to accept it. The Jewish people at that time frame were under Roman control. So, if the Roman would have referred to him as Christos instead of in his language Meshiach, then he may not have liked it, but he was gonna take it.
You gotta take it. So basically, what this sounds like to me is the Greek gentrification of Jewish culture. Yeah, and then to make matters worse,
it's called Hellenization.
They pray Hellenization, but it's still gentrification.
That's what that's called, is Hellenization, because the Greeks and the Romans went in and they override your culture with their culture.
Yeah. And so they calling this man something that probably would insult him, even though he would have to take it. But it probably would insult. I think they should have asked Jesus what his pronouns was. You know, they're not big on that.
Well,
all right, and
he wouldn't have been insulted. He wouldn't have been insulted being called Christos.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
The same thing.
Well, I'm not gonna argue with your expertise, sir.
He probably
would
He probably would have thought, "Oh, damn, they recognize who I am."
What about Paul and Jesus? When I read that book, it seemed like to me Paul was an undercover agent who was sent to destroy the Christian church, which he did from the inside out. First, he tried to do it from the outside in, but it didn't work, so he got on the inside and he changed all the rules and made them follow Paul instead of Jesus, because Jesus said he didn't come to abolish the law, but Paul said the direct opposite in Galatians. I forget the chapter and verse, that that the old law was a temporary schoolmaster and it has been abolished. So how you square that circle?
Well, now back in the day, I would have 100% agree with you because I thought that Paul actually existed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, now, I'm inside this.
Now with more research and more understanding, I don't think that there was ever a character named Paul, that he ever existed. That the letters that are claimed to have been written by Paul, and the pseudo letters that are claimed to be written by Paul as well, that those were possibly written by either a Hellenistic Jew or Marcion himself, because those letters don't appear until Marcion collects them into his Bible in 144 is when we first get those letters. So I just think it was a different sect of Christianity that was based on more Hellenistic viewpoints, based on the Roman. And so I don't see it as them trying to destroy other versions of Christianity, but trying to become the dominant version. Just kind of like we got all the denominations today. That it was a different denomination, but then the later church organizers adopted those same writings because of their popularity.
Well, but either way it go, I mean, just wait through the madness of this damn story known as the Bible with me. But either way it go, Paul, Marcion, or Hellenistic Jew, whoever wrote that crap, directly contradicted Jesus, right?
Well, yeah, because so if you look at Paul's letters, you look at the Gospel of Luke, those are written for a Greek audience. They're not written for a Jewish audience. But when you look at Mark and Matthew and somewhat John, those are written more for the Jewish audience. So it's kind of like Paul and them is BET and the Gospel is Fox News.
Yeah.
They are for different audiences. But then by the time we get to around 369, around that time frame, they start to smash them all together to create this canon and try to create some unity within them. Because now it's completely controlled by the Greeks, but they need the Jewish connection in order for it to work.
Okay. Well, that's about all. I mean, I don't think I got a few. I guess a couple of outtakes. I know you probably got somebody else on another line, but I've been lost my train of thought.
Spit it out.
Where I was going. All right. Well, there's some I don't get off into the mysticism stuff of Paul and Jesus. I really don't. I don't be honest with you. I don't really think they existed either. But I really don't much care, because how I look at it, we're looking at some ancient people with some bad ideas from the ancient past before they had a word called germs and fiction. You know what I'm saying? These people, and we can't move forward with our civilization because we got an anchor to the past. And these people read this book and they live their lives. They give all their discretion to this book, and then they call it free will. And I don't understand that. I don't know how we can move forward with these people keep lurching us back towards the past. We can't forget about slavery. We can't forget about misogynism. We can't improve or do anything because they want to stay in the first century.
I'm with you to a degree. I think we have to remember history so that we try not to repeat it.
Oh yeah,
history is for us to learn from, not for us to repeat. So I don't
want
us to forget about slavery, because we need to always be on guard against slavery. But
true.
We need to, but some of the things that created the negative impacts on societies, we need to not repeat those. We need to let go of those. The
Well, yeah.
superiority complexes need to be let go. My religion is the right religion and your religion is wrong, and I can persecute you because of your religion. We got to let those things go. You know, have your religion, but just keep it over there in your own house. Stop trying to push it out to everybody else's house. So I think we have to we remember it only to learn lessons from it. But I appreciate
exactly, man.
Huh?
All right, as always, man. I appreciate the talk, man. You enlighten me. You enlighten my dark moments with your knowledge, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My time. Always a good time with my time. Let's see. Got somebody over here. I know John was up there earlier. John is gone. Instagram Terry is gone. Shahid is gone. Good. I ain't mad that Shahid is gone because Islam is a whole nother beast. Okay, so there's nobody in the waiting. Nobody wants to talk to me. But once again, let me thank everybody who supports the channel through various ways, whether you are super chatting, giving gifts. Somebody gave a big heart hand thing. I don't know what it means, but I appreciate it. I'm still learning some of the TikTok stuff. Thank you, everybody who shares the channel, supports the channel. Thank you guys very much. Who super chats and all those sorts of things. Appreciate you. I can show you all the knowledge, but only if y'all have social media. Yeah, I know that somebody had threw up earlier. I saw something about the Shroud of Turin on here. The Shroud of Turin is I think 14th century forgery and has been shown to be a forgery. I don't have a business page, Iron Man. I was saying that if I wanted to create another page that I really love to talk about stuff, it would be a business page. I do have a relationship page that I need to actually put forth more energy towards. That's Lorenzo LA, Lorenzo Reed at Lorenzo Reed 369 is that page. Lorenzo Reed 369, LARENZOREID 369. I will start putting more videos out for that one and start doing lives for that channel as well. I would love a good business page. I don't know. I'm considering that. Now I do conduct business consulting, like business and life consulting. So that's something you just reach out to me in a message and I do consulting. Yeah, I did some videos about the Our Lady Fatima scam a while back, where all these people were lying, talking about they seen this light up in the sky, and all of it has been proved to be a hoax. That the whole Lady of Fatima is a bunch of BS. Oh, I see what you're saying about Elizabeth. You and Elizabeth have been arguing back and forth. But I did see the Shroud of Turin, and the Shroud of Turin is a forgery. Even the story of the Bible itself can't get the Shroud of Turin correctly. Either the Shroud of Turin was in one piece or it was in two pieces, because according to John, there was a face cloth and then there was a body cloth. According to the other one, it was a full body, it was a full body cloth. So the Shroud of Turin itself is a full body cloth. And I did a video once. I can't do it right now because I don't have the stuff to do it. If you were, and I soaked my face in water, and then I wrapped it with paper towels. And then when I unwrapped it, I showed how a face would be if a face was wrapped and then an image came out. It doesn't come out looking like a picture. Your face would come out looking spread out. Like my face looked like it was like this big. So just the practical application of a Shroud of Turin does not create an image that maintains your facial image being the wrap cloth. Because if it's wrapped around here, and let's say you burn through it or your image burns through it, when it's unwrapped, that part is going to flare out like that. So you're not going to get this solid looking image. It doesn't work. And it's been proven every time they test it, they keep proving that it is a forgery. It is a forgery. So now, the next time I'm in Italy, will I go to Turin and go and look at the Shroud of Turin? Yes, only so that I can make another video talking about how much bullshit the Shroud of Turin is. Yeah, right. It won't be 3D exactly. It doesn't work that way. I don't know why people, it's like logic and reason goes out the door when you present these information, or you start digging deep into the information that's presented. This is why, and I might clip that whole conversation with Maggie, because the critical thinking just doesn't go all the way upstairs at all. It doesn't work. No one can recreate the image of light. It was painted on, my dear. Elizabeth, the disciple, it was painted on. There's even a document that talks about how one of the popes or one of the people out of the Vatican somewhere was saying that it was painted on. It's a forgery. But believers are going to believe. You can show them all the proof that exists, and they still just going to believe it and accept it and run with it. Master King. Kina, am I saying that right? Kina? I did get something that says unable to connect. Are you there, Kina? Or Kikana? Oh, Kikana. Try to come back up, Kikana, because I got a message saying unable to connect. So try it again. Yeah, try it again, Kikana. I'm not gonna call you master. We're not doing that. But let me put the invite out here on YouTube and Facebook again. Like, you can literally go through European Christian history, and you can see the time frames where having Christian artifacts became a primary way for a lot of these monasteries, these churches, to make money. It was also a time frame where having these artifacts gave you a little bit more authority within the landscape of the people at that time frame. This is why there are more pieces of the true cross than there is a forest. Like, you can literally have a forest of trees with the number of pieces of true crosses that people claim that they have, because it's been all over the place. And that started with Helena in 318. And that was something that I meant to bring up when Maggie and Taharka was on. And that's the fact, because she had mentioned the turning point into Christianity. It wasn't even because Constantine fell in love with Christianity. It was because Constantine's mother became a Christian. And then Constantine gave his mother keys to the bank. And she went into Syria and Israel and started saying, oh, that's Calvary, build a church. Oh, we're going to take this house. That's where Jesus was born. Build a church. Tear down that pagan temple and build a church on top of that one. And that's what she constantly did all around Israel. And then she claimed, oh, I found the true cross. And she shipped out pieces of it as political plot devices in order to solidify relationships with the other Christian kingdoms or in or around the Roman Empire. Because remember, the Roman Empire just came back together during the time of Constantine, but it was still a tenuous situation. And the capital had been moved from Rome to Constantinople, which is modern day Istanbul. So she just went down the street and started claiming everything was proof of Jesus here, proof of Jesus there, build that. Now, no one is going to question the emperor's mom. No one's gonna question that. Said it's background noise. Or y'all, is anybody experiencing a lot of background noise? I know I got an air conditioner unit on, but I know I got 2 fans blowing too. It's 95 degrees today. We got to have a we gotta have the AC going. Okay, everybody else is good. Okay, so it may not be my side of the house that's got the background noise. You might need to reconnect if you're getting a lot of background noise, because TikTok has been acting crazy today. I was watching the live while I was getting myself together. And this one guy was having all kind of problems. He kept having to restart his TikTok. I'm supposed to be dead. I love these. I did a video. I've been doing a couple of NDE videos today. Elizabeth said, I'm supposed to be dead. Jesus saved me. I automatically started reading and studying inside and out of the Bible. People claim that all the time. If you were born and raised in Saudi Arabia and you were kind of iffy on Islam, and then you had a car wreck and you survived, you probably swept down that Allah saved you. These experiential revelations, they always are connected to where a person is born and raised. Every time, always where a person is born and raised. I was listening to a gentleman the other day on TikTok. He is a Hindu guy, and he was talking about how he died on the operating table and he saw the light and it was Vishnu, and Vishnu told him it wasn't his time yet and he got things to go back and do, because he thought he was just going to come back as a plant or a fish or something. But Vishnu said, nah, I got more for you to do. And so he came back. He saved him on the operating table. Why that man didn't see Jesus? Why the Hindu guy didn't see Jesus? Should not the Hindu guy have seen Jesus? I saw there was a Muslim guy who was saying that he was on his deathbed, and his mother had already lost 7 kids, 7 sons, and his mother was praying to Allah to save her son. And then Allah came to him and he was saved. And it was Allah. Wasn't Jesus. Where you're born, what you're surrounded by socially, always plays a part. It's a variable to your near-death experience. I had plenty of near-death experience. I ain't see shit. Hell, that woman almost cut me off today on my motorcycle. I ain't see shit. I just saw her wave to say, oh, my bad. That was it. Yep. And then, the video I posted yesterday or the day before? I think it was yesterday. This man he was clinically dead. But when he saw the light told him he needed to go study Islam. And he became Muslim. So this is why near-death experiences, I take them with a grain of salt. I'm pretty sure that when I was a Christian, if I would have had a near-death experience, I probably would have claimed Jesus. But I'm pretty sure right now, if I had a near-death experience, I would not be claiming Jesus. I'd be saying the spaghetti monster. The spaghetti monster saw me. And he spread his Parmesan across my shoulders. And he wrapped me in the noodles of love. And I felt the love, like a love you can't describe. And he sent me back. He said, I got more for you. I'm preparing Titan to be the next space, the next living space for all my disciples to come and live in heaven here on Titan, where they'll live in the abundance of the buffalo mozzarella, where when you squeeze it, the milk runs down your arm. And we will toast the limoncello from the Amalfi Coast lemons. Oh my gosh. So the chakra 6 verses 8. That's how your near-death experiences sound. They have no meaning other than the experience based on what you was raised with. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing more to it. But hey, that's what people. That's the hard thing about people. If you've been indoctrinated into something for so long, allowing your mind to be free to see it for what it truly is one of the most difficult and scariest things for most people to do. Most people are going to be too afraid to do so because everything they know, everything surrounding them is encapsulated in this. And even if you started out and you wasn't a believer, the fact that you have such an overwhelming majority of people in your community who are believers, it gives you an instant herd that you can go and become a sheep of. And because it has that instant gratification of being counted amongst the herd, you feel safe. You feel like this is where you're supposed to be. You don't have to deal with people against you. It's like my man Mac Time was on here. He was saying that an atheist woman is the most beautiful thing in the world. And he said that there's not that many of them. That's a hard thing. If I had come to these revelations when I was 18, 19 years old, I would have been the only one in my community that I know of who thought the same way. I would have been the only one. And I wouldn't have had a prom date. That's for damn sure. Wouldn't have had a prom date. Wouldn't have had a girlfriend. None of that kind of stuff would have happened. Wouldn't have had friends. Would have been ostracized on my football team, my track team, and basketball team. I would have been ostracized from all of them because they all prayed, and I prayed with them back in those days. They prayed before the games and pray after the games. You know, the team, we had the Christian ministry, sports, athletic ministry stuff. I would have been severely ostracized in a time frame where there wasn't this. You didn't have this type of communication. But thankfully now we do. Thankfully now we do have all this stuff where people can connect. And there are a lot more of us, a hell of a lot more of us than people want to give credit to. A lot. So I'm glad that pages like this creates the ability for people to connect. Now, my request right now, if anybody thinks that they can come up and they can prove that the Jesus of the Bible actually existed, please do so. I don't know if people on here are saying that they can show me, they can prove it, if they're actually referring to me on YouTube or someone else within the conversation. Come on and prove it. Demonstrate. Because everything that's up here, and some of these things that I have up here on the queue, is some of it is things that Christians claim proves Christianity, like Josephus and Tacitus and Suetonius and Pliny. You know, they think that these are proofs that there were eyewitnesses. The fact that there's no manuscripts until the fourth century. But then there are other things on here that right off the bat disprove it. Where was Jesus born? Where did he grow up? You know, the first century Hebrew teaching, the differences in the resurrection stories. Hell, there were other Jesus-like stories that was going around in the first century. Yesterday, I asked people to go and research Apollonius of Tyana. When you read the Apollonius of Tyana story, which Tyana, I think, is in Turkey, it reads very much like the Jesus story. Persecution, miraculous escapes, ascension, healing people, raising the dead. Apollonius, born from his mom who had sex with a sea goddess, a sea god. Same stuff, had disciples. There's way too many of the archetypes of the Jesus type character to be able to solidly say that there was a Jesus. That there was a Jesus. No. Send the pics to coach. Man, what kind of, yeah, no, what kind of pictures y'all talking about now? Don't be sending no porn pictures to me. I know that's not what Kevin means. I just had to say it. Come up and tell us. Oh, I think y'all talking to Elizabeth. Elizabeth ain't coming on here. Don't y'all know people like to be keyboard warriors? Because they can make their comments in the keyboard. They can make their little comments and feel a little safe. But when you come on here, you gotta speak up. You gotta know your shit. He said she's afraid. For those who don't know, Fred Adams used to come on and spout out the same shit over and over and over and over again, and to the point where he was so irritating that I had to ban him from the channel. It was annoying. I usually don't ban people because they disagree, but if all you do is spamming the channel, then yeah, you gotta go. But y'all know Elizabeth ain't coming over here. There's been plenty of opportunity. You say she got proof. Prove it. Oh, and by the way, for those who was on the live yesterday, the gentleman who was claiming that he spoke to his mom, that he went down to Haiti, got down with a voodoo priest, and he spoke to his mom, and that he was going to send me the recording. Do you think he sent me the recording? And let me, you know what, before I say that, let me go check my spam. Let me check my spam real quick. Let me check my spam before I say it. Let me check the spam. Where is it? Nope, that's not. Where's spam? It says more button. Make sure because you know, sometimes people stuff go in the spam. Checking the spam. No video, no emails with attachments. Yeah. So he claimed that he had some proof of spiritual beings. He talked to his mama like he said he talked to his mother through a voodoo priest, and that the spiritual realm is real. He talked to the ancestors. And we got nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's how it goes. So I'm sure that Elizabeth has zero proof, because Elizabeth is staying in the comments. Look, they talking, ha ha ha. You have to tell me what kind of proof you'll accept. You know, I find that to be one of those arguments that believers like to use so that they don't have to demonstrate whatever they're claiming to be proof. You know, if you have something that you can prove, then you believe it to be proof, then something was proof of something else. I wouldn't be fearful of demonstrating that in front of people, because as far as I'm concerned, it's proof, it's real. So, and I know most of them say, oh, my experience. Yeah, I'm not going to accept your experience. unless you have some way of proving your experience, which is why the guy yesterday, I was like, okay, you say that the voodoo priest had you talking to your mom as if she was sitting next to you, and the voodoo priest heard her talking. Validated. He said he had recordings. He never sent them. Validated. That's all I'm asking. And see, I'm scared because they do these generalized things. Dude. Wait a minute. Elizabeth, okay, that's a girl. Elizabeth's a girl, so hold on. and I'm going to treat it like a little girl. This is my voice, okay?
Oh, dude, I can talk about Old Testament prophecies and all types of things in the Bible, but you probably won't accept it. Because I can talk about these things, but you know, your heart is so hard and you don't have the Holy Spirit. So I doubt if you'll be able to accept what I'm showing you as proof. And I'm telling you, it's proof. God has shown me in ways that got me caught up into the Spirit. And I wasn't even looking for God at the time, but then he just showed me. And I want to bring that to you. But I know your heart is so hard that you're just not going to accept what my proof is. But my emotions is telling me that this is proof because they're within my emotions. And I know that I love the Lord now. I was going through some hard times, but the Lord just brought me out. He brought me through. He brought me through. So you just got to believe it, but I know your heart is just so damn hard that you just not, because the demons was running rampant through my life, and I was all on all kind of drugs and just doing all kind of things. But Jesus came and he just saved me, and I want to show you the proof. But I'm going to stay here and keep on just being a keyboard warrior so that I ain't got to show you no proof. Because I know it's not really proof. It's just my emotions.
Can you explain demons and demonic possessions? Not most of them are fake. Then there are the ones that are because the person's been indoctrinated into a religion and they want to take their bad behavior or their bad decision-making process and give it over to something outside themselves so that they don't have to take accountability for it. Then they go with the indoctrination that it must be demons. And so they've seen and been taught that people wiggle all on the floor and people cast water on them and all these sorts of things. And so they play it out. It's a performance. But really, it's just bad decisions supported by indoctrinated emotions. There are no such thing as demons except for the ones that you have within yourself. A person doesn't get hooked on drugs because of demons. They get hooked on drugs because their life was sucking. They couldn't figure out a way out, and so they finally gave up or become violent or whatever the situation is. But demons don't exist. There's no proof of any demons existing. They're just humans with bad behavior. And then, of course, they try to blame that, oh, you know, this child got autism, must be a demon. This person got split personalities, must be a demon. But the more our medical science has developed, we realize that no, what people were calling demons was a chemical reaction in a person's brain that causes them to have multiple personalities. So no, demons don't exist. And every coach, and I did a video earlier today. It's already posted on TikTok. It'll be posted on Facebook and YouTube a little bit later. But these people any God that is not your God is considered to be a demon or an evil force. So even when you say demons, they are only qualified based on whatever religion a person believes in. Because a Hindu person would say that the Christian God is a demon or a lower deity. And the Christian person would say that the Hindu gods are demons or lower deities. Do y'all remember that pastor who was gonna heal that little boy of I think he was had the extra chromosome. Well, there was one where the kid had extra chromosome. There was another one where the kid had autism, and they was like praying. They're gonna pray the autism away, and they did all that praying and rebuking, and that little boy walked away with his autism. The other little boy walked away with his Down syndrome. That shit don't work. Gary's not one documented case of a Christian going into a hospital praying and the cancer came out of somebody. And you're right. Autism is not a disease. It's just a different way of thinking we can't really understand it or quantify it. Because I'm pretty sure if my nephew had something to say, if he could communicate, he got a lot of shit he probably want to say. It's too bad they can't pray ignorance away. It's too bad they can't pray stupidity away. That would be an awesome thing if we could pray stupidity and ignorance away. Because then these religions will fall apart because they're filled with ignorance and stupidity. Elizabeth, I'm going to say this with all the love in my heart. Shut all the hells up. All you doing, I can show you, but you ain't show shit. So guess what, Elizabeth? You're irritating the fuck. You're irritating me. So bye-bye. Because you're a punk. You're too scared to come on here. So, oh shit, what did I do? Oh, wait a minute. I just blocked one person, but now I can't see none of the comments. Okay, there we go. They're back. Okay, Elizabeth, the disciple, is gone because all that spamming is just getting on my nerves, and then claiming you have proof, but you're not willing to come up here and you just want to be a keyboard warrior. Well, it's almost 4 o'clock. It's about time for me to go to the gym. My fat boy life is over. So it's gym time. Got to get ready, 2 years of retirement life is literally weighing on me. So it's time to go to the gym. I wish I could pray the fat away. That'd be nice if I could pray the fat away. If I can pray this away, that'd be great. But I can't. I actually got to put belt to ass in order to get the fat out the way. So, but I appreciate everybody. I look forward to our next conversation. We'll be live again tomorrow. Let's see, I set my IT appointment. That's on Friday. So no worries. So should be somewhere around noon that we'll go on live around noon tomorrow, noon Central Standard Time. I'm in San Antonio, so Central Standard Time. Should be around noon tomorrow. We'll go live and look forward to having more conversations. Hopefully we can get some of the people who are, actually want to have a healthy conversation on here. We did have some good ones. Thank you, Times and Cherry, and especially to Harka for being on the show today. Now, even thank you, Maggie, for being on the show today. You need to hear that kind of thing. It's a great reminder of why we walked away from Christianity. All right, so y'all have a good one. Thank you for all the support on the channel, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Watch the videos that I publish later on the day. Share them. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. Y'all have a great day, and always remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. If you're ending, I don't know what that means.